pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay,
It's the feedback from his.
that's what I thought.
Okay. All right, public comment and updates from board members. Anybody still getting feedback? Every one of those nights. Yep. Okay. Oh, that's better. So I don't see any hands raised.
Kenny's there.
So Kenny's on. Okay, so next is Matt Ronzio, if you want to come forward, the men's club, one-day liquor license for cornhole.
Morning. Susan. Good to see you again.
Becoming a regular thing?
Yes, yeah. So this year we're gonna have it'll be our 5th annual cornhole tournament. First 3 years, we started over at Kiwanis Beach. Last year, we moved over to BVT, which was very beneficial for us. It was a rainy day, so it was inside to the competition center. And not have to reschedule.
Dave, can you keep yourself muted unless you're speaking, because we're getting feedback.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you. All right, go ahead.
Yep, no problem. Again, another social event, we're looking, the men's club, we're gonna pull a food permit, we'll be cooking food, serving alcohol like we have the last 4 years. And this year, BVT, we're gonna be on the back baseball field. Chief Palmieri's will provide an officer as he has past, as the police department had the last 4 years. This year, we're going to be, it's gonna be an all ages event in terms of participation. And so we're gonna, just like we do with the fireworks, we're gonna have orange fencing set up around the baseball field. So we're funneling everyone through one main gate where we're gonna be carding and providing wristbands to those that are over 21. But then we wanted to expand and allow, players with their children that want to play and no burn up, so we can kind of expand a little more, have a little more attendance. So,
Okay.
Chief Palmieri's on board with that plan. I've already sat down, got with BVT and got Anthony Steele and the school committee's approval for that plan. So again, just coming for the board to.
And I know
And
Chief Palmieri,
questions you have.
right, Chief Palmieri reached out and said, just as it gets closer, because this one's in the future.
Yes,
Week or so before. And
yeah, with this,
things like that.
yeah, this year is gonna be July 11th, so we're doing it after fireworks, so we'll be able to maybe drum up a little more participation, being able to publicize that at the fireworks event. So.
Okay, any questions, Maureen?
No.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
I move to approve the Upton Men's Club application for a one-day liquor license for the cornhole tournament at PVT on July 11th, 2026, subject to compliance with Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 14, regarding issuance by the local licensing authority to nonprofit organizations for all alcohol licenses, and 2, adherence to the town of Upton's one-day liquor license policy, including nonprofit status, server training certificates, local supplier purchase requirement, and all other applicable conditions.
I second, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
fun.
Appreciate it.
Enjoy. Yes, hope for some.
Sure. And then the club will be reaching out about the fixing the signs.
Okay.
We've got quotes to fix the welcome number signs, so
Okay.
we'll be coming towards them.
He actually isn't having a meeting with the town. manager.
Oh, sorry, they've already reached out. All right.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
Good, that's good. Good to know. Thanks, Matt. We
Thank you.
appreciate you coming.
Night.
Have a great night.
You too.
Okay, so, hey, 6:14, we're back on schedule. So Tanya, Elder and Social Services FY 27 budget presentation. Tanya, if you want to take the big chair, and Steve,
And Paul, if you want to call your meeting to order and move up so that we're all closer and can hear each other. Because I'd like to make sure that the people at home can hear, because I know the mic, even though the thing above us looks like a UFO, it doesn't work, but this microphone here does.
Items B and C and the number 4.
Well, they'll, after,
They're
Libraries here and then,
we've got elder ESS, then library, then schools.
Oh, that's not on
Do
my,
you have the old agenda or
I have the old agenda all.
the revised agenda?
Ready, Steve?
Want the new one? Oh,
No, they just,
Friday was a bit confusing.
we just have, yes.
The chair, any chair.
They're extras, I'm assuming.
You have a quorum.
We have 3, that's all we need.
Sean on.
It's up there. All right, so at,
Sean Craig.
at 6:15, the finance committee meeting will be in order. We have 3 present and 1 on the screen.
Where's yours?
thank you for having me.
Thank you.
My ears are blocked, so I feel like I'm talking loud, but if I'm not, just help me speak up.
Okay.
Just a couple of corrections. I apologize for the late minute addition. The corrections were only in FY 26 numbers and they were by a few dollars. So the driver salaries were off, I think maybe because of the mid-year adjustment or something. So that doesn't affect any of the FY 27 numbers that are here. And then the other correction is in the narrative, which I'll get to, and that is just a title change. There was a lot of back and forth in one of the new positions. So the one I sent today is the most updated. So I just want to start by noting that last year was my first year presenting the budget. And despite the increases in attendance and services that I saw, I tried to be very conservative in what I asked for because I really wanted to get a grasp on operations and what the staffing needs and make sure that the request was realistic when I came to you this year. So the FY 27 proposed budget for the ESS department is $295,323. And that's representing an increase of $38,538 or 15% total. The increase is primarily driven by the significant growth in program attendance, a substantial rise in social service support, which I'll get to, and associated wage and staffing adjustments, which I'm going to comment on as well. So for FY 27, the request includes a $34,388 increase to wages. That continues to take into account the $15,000 that we're pulling from formula grant to pay for the salary of the department coordinator. There includes the 2% COLA increase and step increases for all employees, and then requested staffing changes to address the increased departmental demands. And those requests include the elevation of the social service coordinator to assistant director outreach coordinator. That ensures that continuity of services as the demands continue to rise, adequate staff and intern support, which I'll get to as well, and timely response to attendee safety concerns. So we always want to make sure that we're staffed appropriately and that if I'm not present, that there's someone that's trained and ready to be able to respond to any emergencies that come through the department. And also, in addition, because of the drastic increase in attendance and demands, we're asking to add a program coordinator position, which is a 19-hour position at a cost of $22,000 for the year. That position, I feel, is a strong need in order to maintain the quality and quantity of programming that we're currently providing. With the social service needs increasing and our social service engagement up more than 100%, it's really taking a toll on our ability to maintain the programs sufficiently. So we're trying to make sure that we can seamlessly continue to offer those programs while also addressing the social service needs that continue to come through. And just to note, this includes the 2 MSW interns that we've added for FY '26 and going into FY '27. They've helped us expand our capacity drastically. It's a huge return on investment for the town because they are free of charge. So there's minimal financial cost, but there is a meaningful investment from the staff in order to provide the supervision that's required and also mentorship as they get up and running. Any questions on staff or wages?
Your MSWs,
Mhm.
what happens when they leave? You got 2 more lined up to come in, or or you're gonna be looking for another half-time person? I say this in all honesty, because, you know, I go there a lot.
Yeah, no,
I wanna-
I noted that in here is the fortunate thing is they're expanding our reach. The unfortunate thing when they're gone, we still have the caseload that they brought in. Ideally, I would love to bring on at least one when that one leaves, and I've already started to put out feelers with the school that we're working with so that hopefully we can just replace that person. It probably wouldn't be until next fall because of the overlap of their semesters.
Works.
Moving on to programming and expenses, we're requesting a nominal increase of 15%, and that's to accommodate rising operational costs related to the 96% increase we're seeing in program attendance over the last 2 years. That 96% is for program sign-ins only. It does not take into account the additional traffic that we see in the building throughout the day that may be utilizing the coffee or the bathroom or the water or whatever it may be as far as expenses. We're hoping that with the addition of a program coordinator, that will increase our capacity and help strengthen cost control so we can, be ahead of the game as far as ordering supplies for events. And then also be able to alleviate my caseload a little bit so that we can focus more on other funding opportunities. And then we're also hopeful that this will allow us to better use the funds that are being provided or offered by Fuse, Men's Club, Bloomer Girls. Because unfortunately, the funds aren't quite the problem right now. It's having the staff to be able to follow through on the programming for that. And just to note, we offered 1,854 programs, and yes, I did check this, seems high. For FY '25, that was a 46% increase from the year prior. So that includes all of our weekly classes and programs, our monthly programs, and our special programs as well. So some of our classes happen up to 3 times a week over a 52-week time span. And even with the program funding and this increase as well as that, we really can't sustain the level of programming that we're doing right now. It's taking every bit of effort that we have to be able to manage them. And we're seeing, for those of you who have been to events, we're often being pulled out of the events to respond to other things, and it's leaving very minimal staff there to oversee the programming. Any questions on that part?
Just a quick question. When you're speaking of the programs, do you charge fees for some of these programs and some you do not?
Correct.
How's that all work?
For fitness classes, we charge $3. That hasn't changed over the last many years. We talked about increasing that, but given the burden that we're seeing for the seniors now, it felt like it wasn't worth the extra dollar to ask them to contribute if it's going to be a burden to them.
That's commensurate to what Northbridge is charging. So that seems to be the competitive rate, if you will.
Yeah, it seems to be between $3 and $4 for the most. Okay, yeah.
It's the dot.
Said it's 96% over 2 years. You know what the increase is here? Like the-
Yeah, it's on the
One to
last
one?
page of the narrative. Hang on.
What's 30?
22?
Yeah, attendance was 30% from 24 to
It's still-
25 and 96%.
It's
So
still-
it's still going up, yeah. Yeah, we're at capacity for several of our fitness classes too, so that's another issue that we're dealing with
And several of the events
in the
that take
event.
place there too.
Yeah. Yep. We're gonna have to start kicking Paul out in order to make.
You can make that happen.
Oh, you got the
It wouldn't be a party without you there, Paul. Moving on to social service needs, with the uncertainty of the government support that we saw this year and the rising costs, we've had a substantial increase in social service requests. Engagements have more than doubled over the past 2 years. And that number is not even considering the interns that we brought on. So that's strictly Katie's numbers, so to say. I'm not as good at tracking my engagements as she is. So the 100% increase is solely on Katie's touches. And we've also seen 110% increase in Racine requests. So as that became more important for the town to get out there and to be able to assist, it obviously increases the caseload dramatically in our department. A lot of those cases are intensive case management. There's a lot of advocacy and a lot of follow-up to make sure that those are taken care of. Also, due to the increased visibility and accessibility in the new building, one of the things that we're seeing a lot more of that we didn't in the old senior center is residents coming in either in acute distress or behavioral health emergencies. And that's become more and more evident over the last, I would say, 6 months to a year than even the first year that I was there. These situations obviously require immediate and appropriate responses. So we've had to go through additional training to make sure that the staff feel safe and comfortable in responding to people when they do come in. And then these situations, as I mentioned before, are unpredictable. So it could happen in the middle of the event, and that takes one of our staff people out of the event for a prolonged period of time until we can line up support for that person. And then just to touch on revenue and cost savings, I think I answered part of this, but the formula grant currently, MCOA and the COA staff is advocating for level funding. So it was awarded at $16 per elder this year. However, because of the uncertainty, they're releasing it in smaller increments. So we used to get it twice a year and we would know when it was coming. And now the second half of it is being spread out over 3 payments, which makes me a little weary, but I'm confident it will come through. And then hopefully it will be level funded for next year. So that's $27,000 that we get allocated, and $15,000 of that goes back to the department coordinator position. Due to the efficient cost savings transportation that we've been doing with the new hybrid van and the new software, I felt comfortable reallocating $2,500 that we've had in the transportation into programming, because the need is higher in the programming side, and I feel confident that we can still cover the transportation and the amount that was left there. We also received cultural council grants to cover 3 new programs in the coming year. So those were both music and cognitive programs. And then I plan to apply for SIG grant through MCOA and creative engagement grant through Mass Cultural Council to help with the cost of programming as well. As you asked, the fees charged for programs we've left consistent because we don't feel that we should increase the burden to residents right now. And that's it. We're seniors right now are 29% of Upton's population. That's actually higher. Massachusetts was saying it was going to go up to 23% by 2030. So Upton is already higher as far as that percentage. So my hope is that this planning will help us keep up with the demand and be prepared as that number continues to go up.
And it's gonna be more the more of these over 55s that go.
Yes.
Because you've seen, and I know, I might put my fuse hat on, that there's quite a few people from up on North Street, what's that called, Cobbler's Creek. There's people, few people from there starting to show up, and there's quite a few from up on East Street.
And I hate to tell you, Paul, but I'm a senior citizen officially as well, so.
It's on quick.
It does.
30%.
I thought it was bad when you turn 50, the AARP, but you go over 60 and I'm like, cool, I can go to exercise plants for $3.
Park at the national parks for free.
Exactly.
I've said this many years now, that I know much more about that building than I ever dreamed
Yeah,
I would know when it started. But you've built a building that's, I don't know how many times larger and has greater capacities than Farm Street. I don't think anybody, even at that point, ever visualized how much more traffic both from the library side and the elderly side, excuse me, the COA side.
Yeah.
We're gonna generate. I went by there today, 1:30, 2 o'clock, and I'm saying, if I have to go in here, I'm gonna have to park on Elm Street. I'll go back on the Rose Garden, so.
Well, there's a exercise with Shirley and she goes to various towns. And the other day I was leaving early and Tanya counted over 30, I think just over 30 people in the room. Yeah, I mean, it's well used, definitely.
Yeah.
And, if you go down there, you can see the increase in services.
The big room only holds 95.
Anybody have any questions, comments?
I was going to add that I had the pleasure of attending your St. Patrick's Day event. Very, very well attended. I walked in, I've not ever walked into a senior center event with so many people in the municipalities I've been in. And I had the pleasure of sitting with two women who actually were from out of town that come to town because they like our services better than the ones in their town. So I won't tell you which towns they're from because I don't want to disparage their communities. But just over the moon, happy with the programs and services that Tanya and her staff provide.
Exactly.
It was great to sit and listen to everything that, they were engaged in.
Business.
Yeah.
We would charge them more.
I was just gonna say, we did, so for the soiree, because that did sell out last year, we opened registration to Upton residents only through this Friday. And then there's already a waiting list of out-of-town residents to sign up after that. So we are trying to make sure that we accommodate Upton residents first when we can.
I was being a little sarcastic.
Yeah.
We knew that.
It's a real problem.
You're doing
In a couple.
out of town.
30% is our limit.
So, all right, any other questions? If not, we appreciate you coming.
Anybody up here? Sean Craig, any questions for Tanya regarding the elder services? You're muted, Sean.
I'm all set.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Sonia, thanks for coming. Okay, up next, the library, Matthew.
Good to do pretty much just say ditto.
I was gonna say, I always like going right after Tanya, because I knew whatever, programs are up, foot traffic is up. We need a few more staff hours. That's about it.
I said in one of the meetings a few weeks ago, I said, our community center has become a destination. And Steve Rackington was here, he said, oh, I love that, but we honestly have. So. the problem with that.
Yeah, and if you don't mind me, before I dive into my budget, just because Tanya was here and we're talking about it, when we formed the community center, and both departments went in there, we had this sort of vision of the cooperation, and I think a lot of that has really come to pass. And especially when, Tanya's talking about social services she offers, that's something in other towns, libraries are struggling with. They kind of by default have to provide those services. And when I hear other directors, I think to myself, well, I'm lucky because when I have someone who comes to my desk with those needs, I can just send them down the other of the building. And, I think we do a good job referring people. She'll send some sort of tech support requests down our way, and anything that has to do with, fuel assistance or social services, I send them that way. So
I think that's why social services has increased, because people they might be in need, but they look like they're going in the library and kind of drift over. And the same thing with the food pantry. We're hitting a lot more age gap, I believe, because it's not as stigmatizing as, maybe walking into, oh, everybody knows where you're going,
yeah, for sure. So I think that coordination between the departments has been nice to see.
And he's not paying me to say this, but this is all due to the vision of Mr. Brindisi when he was the town manager, because it was his idea to combine these two buildings, because library wanted a new building, social services needed a building. How are we gonna do this? We were in the midst of a DPW issue at that point,
we're still in this.
and that didn't go away, but Derek moved the community center building to the front of the line, and that's what you got over there now. Could the building be bigger? Sure.
It could be double the size, but
Yeah.
I'm happy with how it, of all the library buildings we planned and then didn't build. I mean, looking in hindsight now, I'm glad we ended up where we are, because I pulled out some of those old plans and I was like, yeah, you know what? We advocated for it at the time, but maybe it wasn't the best idea.
Over here in Grove Street when we had 13 parking spaces.
Yeah. Or the planned village. And all right, so FY27 budget, if for anyone that doesn't know or might be online, my name's Matthew Bachtold. I'm the library director. And you're going to hear, similar to what Tanya said, 80% of the library budget is salaries. So that's pretty much what drives our budget. So we have our recommended COLA increase and enough requested to do a one-step merit increase for all the staff. Hopefully they all qualify for it. We are asking for a few more hours of staff time. It's a total of 4 hours per week, 2 hours for our children's specialist, 2 hours for our graphic design and marketing specialist. Both those positions would go from 14 hours to 16. So it's just expanding a part-time position. And essentially that's to respond to the increased program attendance. Those are the two positions that really focus on programming and promoting our programs. And then we are a small amount to have the ability to promote one library assistant to library specialist. We have 2 level frontline staff. Everyone starts as a library assistant, and then if you take on some more duties and you've got a few years of experience, we like to have the opportunity to offer a promotion. We did one last year and we're hoping to do one next. Aside from budget, the expense account. So there's a number of qualifications that the state has, requirements to be a certified library. And one of the big ones is that the amount you spend on library materials has to be a certain percentage of your budget. And this is so, a neighboring town can't say, oh, we'll borrow all our books through interlibrary loan. We'll just not buy any books for a couple of years and we'll just have the building and the staff. But that requirement for us is 19% of our total budget. So whenever staff wages go up, we have to accompany that with increasing our materials expense. So that's where that $3,500 increase in that line item is. And then we did a small amount to tweak our support software line item. The good news is our state aid that comes from the state taxes and gets distributed to the libraries has gone up a significant amount this year. So it actually more than pays for the increases. So we actually have a small decrease in the expense account. It's not because we're spending less, it's because we're getting more from the state aid. And I did make a note that I'm expecting at some point the state is going to have to stop. They did a big increase last year. They're doing a big increase next year. With the state budget, I'm assuming that's going to level off and we can't rely on them to constantly increase that every year.
I hope they don't cut it any more than they already have.
Yeah, I don't think it would be, it's rare to decrease the state aid amount, but what they'll probably do is stop increasing it. And then we just level fund that. Any questions on any of that? I want to say a few words about passports and the revolving fund, but.
I just have one question. The FY26 has a reduced to conform town's compensation plan.
Yes.
Where did that go?
So that was
double whammy, that's all.
Yeah, last fiscal 26 was when the town revised the compensation plan. The library trustees made a request to have one of the positions get a larger increase than what the consultant recommended. And then after discussion with the town manager, ultimately that request was not approved in the budget. But because the library trustees requested it, Kenny couldn't edit our request. He had to do a reduction. So essentially that was the town manager saying.
So it's still reduced on FY27?
No, that just vanished. So the position that we had asked for that for, we're just asking for the raise based on what they got in fiscal 26,
Okay.
and we're not asking for that additional increase. Okay, so I did want to mention passport postage because that's one of the few services that the library does charge for. And it generates revenue that's turned into the general fund. It's actually a pretty good revenue generator. We fiscal 25, we turned in 16,000 to the general fund. Fiscal 26 looks like it'll be pretty similar. And if you just look at the cost of so we pay the postage and then the applicant pays fees. It looks like a good return on investment if you just look at the postage, but we just want to be aware that there's also a big cost in staff time. That's not, we don't charge hours to the passports, but it does take a fair amount of staff time.
So they turn it around real fast, because I did it 2 or 3 years ago, and it was like 3 or 4 weeks. And we had to pay.
And it was like, I was so psyched.
Yeah, so
Like within a week or two.
we can't take credit for that. That's, we mail it to the State Department. We don't control. So the fact that you're getting them quickly. So we can't make it come quickly, but what we can do, and we hear this a lot from people that come in, is because of the building and, staff that are well-trained and happy to be doing what they're doing compared to the experience you get at the post office. We get a lot of compliments on how, especially if you have small children with you, we make it very pleasant to apply for a passport. I did want to mention our revolving fund. I'm not sure it might not even be listed on the narrative. But I did, because passport income, the income from the photos actually goes to the library revolving fund. We've been doing a lot of that, and our cap for the library revolving fund has been $6,000 for many, many years. We're probably going to hit that cap in fiscal 26. So for fiscal 27, I'm just requesting that the revenue limit on the library revolving account be increased. I believe I asked for 10,000, and I think Dennis said he was, so that's in the warrant. That's not really the budget, but that warrant article that says all the revolving funds, we're asking for that to be increased.
Dennis said yes to everything.
Big numbers.
And then operational overview, same as what Tanya's seeing. We're seeing large increases in program attendance, large increases in annual visits. I'm expecting that to kind of level off, now that we're pretty settled into the new building. I'd like to see a 10-15% increase. I'm not expecting to see 40% every year, because that's not really sustainable. As Tanya said, the programs get full, and then you just really can't add too much more.
Questions, comments?
You're good staffing wise, you're adding a couple of hours, but staffing wise, you're.
For now, we are. We added a full-time staff person right when we moved into the building. That was the adult librarian, and so happy we did that. But that, kept us going for now. I think the trustees are going to have to think seriously about if we want to keep expanding services, that's going to need more staff people. And does that mean another part-time person? Does that mean a part-timer turns into a full-timer? But not for fiscal 27. Fiscal 28, fiscal 29, we may be looking for that, or we may just say, you know what? These are all the services we can offer, and can't just keep constantly adding staff.
Well, eventually you're gonna be drained by just the physical area that you got over there.
Right.
Yeah.
So like right now we offer, 4 story times a week, and then, they're all full. People say, well, I'd like to get into story time. So it's either you offer more story times. When do you do that? People have asked for more Saturday events. I have 2 people in the building on Saturdays. One of them is doing quite a few passports. So, that's the question where if the trustees decide their priority is more Saturday programs, that's probably going to need another person to work on Saturday. But as I said, that's not a fiscal 27 we're going to get through, and then see.
No, but it's good to have those. I mean, this is the group to have that conversation with, to sort of think about where we might be headed. So that's all good.
What about interns? Tanya mentioned she has multiple? Is it possible for you to tap into that as well for local?
It could be. I know she's getting really good use out of them, which is great for her. We have not used interns at the library. But we could look into it. Again, it would be programming focused,
just-
it would be someone to run the story time, run extra book groups, that sort of thing. We have started to get more volunteers over the last 2 years, which is good. Leanne, my children's librarian, actually coordinates those. But we're a little, the number of tasks that a volunteer can complete are not always the same as what a, paid, trained, regular staff person can do.
Bless you.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have none. Rick,
No questions.
Sean, any questions here?
No questions.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good to see everyone. We used to have more FinCom meetings. I used to go down in the basement and meet with the FinCom a couple times a year. But this is nice to do it
What do
together.
you mean, a couple times a year, once?
It just felt like a couple.
It felt long.
Okay. NURSD, you're up. I think there's enough chairs. Come up, make yourself comfortable. Decide who's in the big hot seat. Whatever works.
Stuff on the table.
Yeah.
Dr. Cohen, you're gonna have the whole area.
We're gonna sit nice and cozy
Wow,
here.
speed up and move right away. Is that the same?
Come up here.
It is, yeah, so you don't need that, but if you want to pass it to anyone who doesn't. It's online too.
Is it okay if I share my screen so we can
I've
project?
never seen it before.
Yes.
In the room.
Good. Joy.
Be able to, it says.
Rick, jiggle.
Yep, there you go. You got it.
Here we go.
Unless someone needs it.
Sean, that's it.
No, it's like,
Realize we're on the big screen. See you later.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Glad we don't have to.
What's that?
COA because he just flew that around.
Hang on, that worked. Sorry, folks.
Just kidding, just kidding.
This is the condensed version, right? This is Cliff Notes.
right on time.
Appreciate it.
I mean, it's a, it's
2 hour show.
it's not the 1 hour presentation. It is a condensed version.
45 minutes, Paul.
All right, you can start timing us. Thank you so much for having us. We appreciate the opportunity. What we're gonna do is,
Everybody is.
I do.
Okay, so shaking your head no. If we could.
Kristen too, maybe? Yeah, we met Kristen.
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jay Byer.
And
Colin
Jim Forkey's,
Forkey.
he's the chairman of the school committee.
Paul Flaherty, he's been here since the building was built. I know, I had your vote until
You
then.
were lucky I didn't go to that school budget hearing.
And you know why he knows that? Because he was there too.
I know.
Oh, okay.
That's a good
Now we're
start.
having-
That's how we have to start.
All right, All right.
And that's why Jim's.
And he ain't doing it.
Exactly. Line of fires.
All right. We're all friends here.
Yeah.
No, thank you, Maureen. I'm the
Here we are
superintendent.
now, but another half an hour, we probably won't see.
Sounds like a challenge.
Welcome, Charles, to the select board meeting.
All right, so what we're gonna do is walk you through some key takeaways to get us started. Can you go to the next slide?
Right.
There you go. We're gonna give you a quick highlight about how we believe and know that we're an exceptional school district. We have a comprehensive strategic plan, and it's led to improved outcomes for our students and also lots of external recognition this year. We're in the midst of a perfect storm, as we're describing it, where fixed costs are accelerating faster than local revenue within Prop 2.5, and it's leading to a widening structural gap that's been growing over the years.
we're at this breaking point right now. We have bridged the growing gaps over the last 11 years with reductions, reallocations, use of grants, as well as an increased use of our reserves. Our primary cost drivers for this year, health insurance, specifically around our premium escalation this year, contractual obligations and out-of-district costs. The state and federal governments aren't going to save us in our budget. And so the future of our district rests within local choices that we are hoping the communities will make. Needs-based budgets, I'll give you a couple highlights of that. And it's grounded in our strategic priorities and also what we believe to be best for students. And ultimately, it's a local choice. So we talk about what the different types of avenues would be with that, whatever path we go. So we'll begin with a couple quick highlights because I can't ever give up an opportunity to give a couple of highlights about how successful we are in our district. We're an exceptional district at every grade level. This is a good snapshot of how we're invested in our students' future success. And we have a lot of partnerships that we're building with the communities, as noted right there. We have a return on investment in our student experience. This sometimes can't be something that's quantified with achievement data. It's quantified in how our students thrive and their successes that they have after they leave us. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to follow you. I keep thinking I'm clicking, but here, I should click yours. Yeah.
Down there, right
Yeah,
there.
okay, all right. With our strategic priorities, we're in our third year of our strategic plan. We are driven by our strategic priorities. So you often hear a lot about our deeper learning, our focus and some investments on a high quality curriculum instruction, on equity, inclusion, and well-being, and trying to partner as often as we can in gaining community support. Okay. We are, been recognized for excellence over the last few years. These are just a few of the headlines. And if I had time between the last couple of days, we have a few more press releases that just came out about our successes and additional grants that we're able to receive to support our district and our students. Some areas for our return on investment is also around achievement, which is obviously a big part. Some of the investments that we made in the past was adding in an assistant principal a number of years ago, instructional coach, high quality curriculum resources like Bridges. For those that are familiar with our elementary programming, that's a math resource that we have. As a result of that and iReady assessments, these are all investments that we've strategically made over the last 5 years. We've been recognized by the state for our going to pre-pandemic math achievement and our growth in our math scores. And we've been recognized from DESE and given a few presentations on that to other districts. We've had noticeable growth in our ELA. This is just a snapshot, especially in writing. Part of that is because we had an addition of a staff member in order to have teaming at grade 5, an addition of high quality curriculum resources, PD for teachers, and then those common assessments. And then the next one is an investment in the well-being of all of our students. I don't know if you're familiar, but there was a big decline or rise in chronic absenteeism after the pandemic. And this is across the nation with our supports that we put in for social emotional learning and counselors over the years and targeted investments in our data systems. We are drastically reducing our chronic absenteeism. I could give you 20 more slides. I won't because this is a condensed version, but wanted to highlight some of the outcomes so people who might not be as familiar might be able to kind of know what the investments are providing our community. Another thing that happens is because we're doing so well, we have many families that want to bring their students here from other towns. And so the blue line is the number of school choice coming in, and red is the number of school choice going out of our district. You'll find that some of the districts surrounding us that have been struggling or have not had continuous investments in their students, that's where the students are coming from for our district. And this is a source of revenue, and it helps to support our budget as well. So as we jump into the perfect storm, what you'll find, can I do that? Yep. The fixed costs are increasing faster than our local revenue. And right now, the gap that we have in our budget that was certified is a $4.1 million difference. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Gap has been widening, And for those of you who recall the past presentations that we've given, we had a man looking over a cliff, and it was pointing out that into the future that this cliff is widening. And what are on the boulders in this image here are all the reasons why it has been growing over the course of the years. Something else
Next year,
to
if
point
it
out.
passes, we don't have to look at that guy going over the side anymore.
I'll probably come up with a different image to summarize what's
Been like-
going on in the world,
It's been at
but
least
yeah.
3 years.
It has, yeah, and we've been able to, but I can pause on that since you mentioned it. So at one point, we have this larger gap right now, and we'll get to the reasons why, and then I know some of you are familiar with, but a year ago, it was 1.7. The year before, it was 1, and we have closed it by making reductions, by including, trying to go as far as we can. But this year, the gap has grown wider than we would have liked. So this was on our slides last year, the fact that we went deeper into reserves. We're using more of a grant for some offsets. We kept maintaining the level services. And we continue to put off some technology. So that was a slide from last year to show that this is something that we have been talking about, we have been eyeing and working through. One thing we've done to bridge the gaps, which I just mentioned, are with reductions, reallocations, grants, and the use of reserves. Just to give you a snapshot, and we have information on grants and reserves in the slide deck if you want us to bring any of it up, but this is in the last few years, some of the reductions that we've made due to either declining enrollment or reallocating or we're trying to close the gap. And we can go further back on what has been made on our website. We have all of the presentations that have been made from our departments over the last number of years since I've been here. And in all of those, I ask them to show their efficiencies, the reductions, the reallocation, so you can see the longer story over all the years of what's been happening in the district. So now we're going to jump into key cost drivers that are fixed and are driving the gap this year. And this is when I hand off to Jay.
Hi. All right, so let's just look at the total budget for starters. You can see the blue and it looks like orange employee benefit and salaries. They amount to almost 78% of our budget. That's naturally where we should be spending our money. Those are the teachers delivering instruction, all the support staff throughout the district. So that's where the majority of the money goes within the district. Our big drivers this year: health insurance, salaries, and special education. Health insurance is the biggest one. We're looking at budgetarily a 32% increase. Our premiums are going up 23%. We had an issue this year where so many people joined that were under budgeted this year, which is why it looks like a larger gap in the budget as far as the budget numbers. Salaries are up $1.5 million. It's about a little over 6%. Special education, this is really out of district tuition. We've got about 6 more kids that are destined to potentially be going out next year. So it's an increase of almost $1 million there. So if you take those 3 together, that's 81% of the proposed increase for our budget for next year. The drivers, as we go through them all, we just talked about the top 3. We've got a few new positions in order to maintain services. And then some curriculum resources, our utilities, mostly that's electricity, heating, oil, some of those things that are continuing to go up. And those numbers were before the last 3 weeks of the world. So we may have to look at those again. Worcester retirement's up about 130,000. I don't know what the town's increase was, but I think it was probably around the same, if I'm guessing.
It's about 20% increase
Yeah.
total, including the enterprise funds and the overall town pension.
Yeah, I kind of hoped it was going to be less because last year it was only about 7%, but apparently that was the anomaly, and this year's the trend again. Transportation is up about 128,000. We renegotiated that contract for years 4 and 5 of our contract, so it was going to be up higher, but they did agree with us to lower those costs a little bit. Health insurance is the big thing. We've talked about this a lot. About 51% of municipal healthcare budgets are exceeding their budgeted amounts. It's a big driver for everybody. One of the big drivers is pharmaceutical costs, which amount to, I believe he said last night, about 35% of our expenditures are pharmaceutical costs. We also have some very high claims. We've got at least a half a dozen. We're in what's called a self-funded plan, so we pay up to $175,000 and it goes to stop loss coverage. We've got at least 6 that have far exceeded that. So one of the things when you talk about healthcare isn't necessarily the percentage of your premium increase, but the actual cost of the premiums. The trend right now is around 20%. If I had to guess, I think Mendon and Upton both are around 14 or 15%. They're both on the Maya plan, which is also a self-funded plan. Our plan is going to be removing GLP-1s. I believe that's happening at the town level as well. We did reach out to Blue Cross Blue Shield, Mass Brigham Health. Both of them said, we are not going to give you a quote because your quotes are, or your, claims are too high. We did go back to Harvard Pilgrim, which is who we are with, and they told us if we wanted to go back to a fully insured plan, it would be a 38% increase. That's not something we were interested in. Believe it or not, 23% is better. I don't know how you say that, but it is. The GIC is averaging around 12, but those premiums are higher than ours. You can see in 26 and 27, we had some pretty dramatic jumps in our health insurance, and mostly that is because of high claims more than anything else.
Jay, when you say high claims, do you mean that we have families that are sick or that are
Yes.
constantly injured or?
So we have about 280 people on our plan of employees of the 400 plus that we have for employees. But when I say a high claim, it means that you have one claim for a family for a severe medical need. We've got a couple that are in the 200,000 to 300,000 range. Again, so we cap out at 175. We've got one that is incredibly high. And it's like the luck of the draw. That becomes a cyclical thing. I mean, I've talked to other schools, our regional vocational school, he told me that they don't have a lot of high claims right now. Therefore, your premiums, stay down. Your rate of increase stays down.
And for a number of years, we were at a much lower rate and were able to go a lot further until recently when some of the changes occurred.
Jay, you're eliminating the GLP-1s. Is that for weight loss?
Yes, only for weight loss. It's
So
being removed.
if the person wants to go back and have the doctor say, you need it because you're diabetic, you're gonna be paying for the
Well, no,
GLP-1s.
they're gonna require an A1 test that shows that they're diabetic.
A1C.
Yeah, A1C, okay, yeah.
And you
So-
can't even add a rider for the GLP-1 for weight loss, we were told by Maya, because that question had come up from a number of communities and they are just not underwriting it.
Nobody is covering them anymore for weight loss. None of the companies are. It's pretty much a national trend. Part of that is, again, the dose is like $1,400 or something like that for a dose. And I think you can get it. Now, last night we were told it's around 400. I've seen it on certain sites where it's like 150. Somebody's making a lot of money between that, so even 400 and 1,400, and we're just paying it. All right, out of district costs. We're projected to spend about almost $4.9 million next year. That's for 22 students that are placed out. We currently have 16. I know we have a bunch in evaluations. I was told today that we think a couple may be returning next year that are out currently. That's a good sign, but right now this is what we're projected. And this includes transportation and tuition. Out of state tuition or out of district tuitions can range anywhere from 40 or 50,000 to as high as 700 or 800,000 per student. Transportation generally is running about 80,000 per student if you have to just get a single van. If you can collaborate, and we do that with other towns, and we try to combine routes to save money, but it's a difficult thing depending on where they go.
So can I just mention one thing? Because at your meeting, there were a lot of people mentioning special ed and having the resources. So if you're saying that 4 of the 16 could be coming back, that's just going to put more burden on some of the teachers.
2 of the 16 may come back.
Oh, well, anything. 2 was going to add some sort of additional burden on some.
It's
So I just want to
possible.
mention that because the way you said it was like it's going away, but it's not going away. It's becoming internal versus.
Right, you're paying the special education externally or you're paying it internally.
Right.
Either way, you're covering it.
And it's a lot less money to do it
Inside.
Yep.
And we believe the staff we have.
Because you've got sort of the scale.
There was a definite vibe in the room that special education, we need to add more because when you guys get to your other slide, if you're not going to show it, but a lot of it was special ed. So I just want to make sure it's mentioned because it seems.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And it gets to like when we get to, if you have cuts and it starts that spiral, more students will will end up being referred to go external. I'll talk about it after. So it's like this balance of having some investments, which we've done in some strategic investments last 3 years. We'd be able to keep students in, particularly at the elementary level, as a result of adding in a therapeutic program and getting early intervention with students. And some of the positions that we have in the budget are to continue to meet the needs. So then, because if we don't, then it'll end up being a referral. So it's like a balance there, but that's a good question.
Maureen, or Jake,
Yeah.
the special education, you have to, provide something till age 22 in some situations,
Yes,
am I right?
Correct. Yep.
Yes.
So is that, do we have any in that?
That are out of district placements that are in the 18 to 22 range, yes.
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 Yeah.
We have some, we had a couple age out this year, but yes, we do have some that get there. We also have them down in, 4th, 5th grade. Generally, that's about when they start to look like when we can't provide needs for them, except in certain situations.
No, but I'm sure there's people that don't understand that.
Yeah.
You own this
Until
personally
22
to
years old, correct.
22.
Correct.
So this isn't just a Mendon Upton challenge when we're talking about funding. So we'll give it just a couple snapshots related to state funding. And we've also got news that there'd be some reductions in our federal funding potentially as well. And we all understand, I'm sure everyone in the room, the limitations in local revenue. The next slide is kind of like it's a cyclical slide. I could do one that's about sort of the spiral that can happen. This actually came out of the Worcester County Superintendent Roundtable. We all met with legislators in all of our roundtables, and I attend 2 different ones, and we had presentations. So if you start in the upper left, because our aid is pretty flat coming into communities like us and communities in Worcester County in particular, what happens, we still have fixed costs that are increasing, that remain. And as a result, when that's happening, we're forced to cut programs and services in order to balance the budget. If you cut too many of those services, just like we were mentioning, then you enter into that competitive disadvantage phase. You either have families who are starting to choose alternative schooling options, and we'll show you kind of like charter schools as an example, but it could be school choicing out, and it could be that we're in a disadvantage because we don't have the services for students like with IEPs who might need some of these services. And then they also are leaving. That's costing us more money. We're still flat, less enrollment. We don't get as much money, and it becomes this cycle. So a lot of districts like ourselves need to choose between cutting programs or receiving some additional funding at some point. There are state trends on this. This came from a number of these presentations, so I'll just really quickly go through it. Special ed costs have risen about 29% since 2021 alone. This is in the state, not just, not here, but enrollments were remaining flat. There was a huge study, about 100 pages, like 98 pages that they just released 2 weeks ago, or I guess it's about 4 weeks ago now, on special ed transportation. They did a study on all of Massachusetts. I put it on the website if anyone ever wants to read about it. But I thought this was interesting. It just shows the cost per rider for fiscal year. We talk a lot about out of district tuitions, but transportation is a big part of that rising cost as well. And then we have this cost burdens outpacing the reimbursement that we're getting. So if you're going to advocate to state legislator at all, it's about increasing the circuit breaker reimbursement. The more that we get back, it will help us with this these increasing costs. And the increasing costs, I usually have a slide about OSD and sets the costs. And we've had increases over the years. 1 year it was like 10% and 3% and keeps going up. And those are the tuition rates that are out of our control externally. So now we're going to jump into kind of revenue. We created this image. I know you're all aware of this, but we found that when we're talking about different sources of revenue, it was better to kind of show where the money comes from in order to fund the schools. So we're going to focus on state aid and local aid in particular, but we also, just so you know, we have tons of slides related to district. We're not going to go over that, and Grant have it if you have questions. So you want to jump?
Yep. All right. So state aid. State aid basically is flat, is about the best I can say. Chapter 70, we're what's called the minimum aid district. So we get the minimum by law per student, which is $30 per student. The governor's budget did set it at $75 per student. That's great. This current year, we're at $150 150, I believe. The previous year was 103. We do expect that that potentially is going to go up from the House budget to the Senate budget as it works its way through. But even if it doubles, that means an extra 142,000. So it's about a 1% increase in Chapter 70. It doesn't do a lot. Transportation reimbursement is up a little 1% as well. Now you'll see $20,000, but our cost went up $127,000. So again, there's a distance that kind of widens up. And then charter school, not everybody understands this part, but when a family chooses to send their kid to a charter student or charter school, we are sent the bill. We pay the tuition for it. Now they do give us a reimbursement, but it's a very small reimbursement to the cost. So in our budget for next year, the cherry sheet has us paying a little over $400,000 for, I don't know the number of students off the top of my head. I think we have
19, yeah.
19. That's right.
Yeah.
So our state aid's up about 1.25%, $185,000. So again, when you have, almost a $5 million increase in needs and $185,000 from the state, you can see where the burden is end up falling. Since FY16, so that's an 11-year trend, we're less than a 1% increase in state aid for Chapter 70. That's not enough to really help us as a district. It basically underfunds districts like ours. When I say district like ours, they look at Mendon and Upton as affluent towns. They say the income is good, property values are high. Those are the two big drivers. So therefore, they're not directing a lot of that money toward these two towns. Transportation, this kind of gives you an image of where it's going. So the reimbursement's up 3.5%, but the costs are up almost 5.5%. So again, that gap continues to widen. The reimbursement is based on our expenses 2 years ago. For FY27, reimbursement is based on what we spent, and I reported on the end of the year report in FY25. So again, it's a little bit behind because we're paying a lot more in 27 than we paid in 25. Here's the charter school piece. So you see we have 19 kids. So you can see the reimbursement was as low as 14% 2 years ago. They're projecting 23%. The catch with all of this is these numbers will change. So this is what's on the cherry sheet now. There'll be a final cherry sheet. And then as the year goes on, things change. And I really find out for sure what we're going to get for revenue, for reimbursement, and our expenses usually in June of, in this case, 27. Which doesn't help you when you're doing your budget now, but that's kind of how it works with charter school.
Jay, this number goes back to the October 1st
Yes.
number?
Well, yeah, it's what's reported, but charter school, they update during the course of the year. So next year, if we had 4 more kids that chose charter schools, they'll charge us for it next year. So it's not based on the October 1 enrollment, just the cherry sheet initially. But it then changes during the course of the year, which is a little frustrating on a budgeting side because again, you never really know what that number is.
It doesn't usually seem to fall in the right direction.
Yeah.
Right,
I mean-
it can change, but it's never really helping us out, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
in general, when you're trying to budget, you like to set your numbers and say, all right, we're all set, and then they change. So it's kind of like a little bit of a shell game. Local aid, again, it's made up of 3 pieces that we, assess the towns for. The minimum local contribution is determined by the state, and it's based on what we talked about, Chapter 70 and the foundation formula. They look at income, property value, growth factors in each of the towns. We have also a section called transportation net state aid. That's part of the regional agreement that says that the towns will pay for transportation. So that basically that amount of difference between the cost of transportation and what we're getting in reimbursement from the state. And if that is split by the enrollment percentage on the October 1 report last 2025. Operational additional is the second section, and that's discretionary funding that is pretty much funded from prior overrides throughout the years. There have been several over, dating back into the 1990s. That's generally where that source of that money is from. The enrollment percentages, you can see how they've gone. It's been pretty steady, about 44 to 56%, with slight variations here and there, but not really a whole lot of changes in the last 7 years or so. For Mendon, their assessment that we're looking at, I never made those comments, sorry. This is when I find all the grammatical typos that I don't think I catch the first time. The increase is about a little under 2.4 million. You can see the minimum contributions up 433, transportation up 104. The big piece is operational additional. It's about a little under, 21.7, 21.75%. Upton, here's the Upton piece. It's about 2.8 million. It's a little over 19%. Your minimum contribution was less this year than Mendon's. Transportation is similar. The operation additional is where the additional money is showing up to get, you know, to the assessment that you're seeing. Over the last 11 years, you can see the growth from both towns. Mendon has been about 1.6% as an average growth rate. Upton's been about 2.6%. Part of that has to do with there were a couple of years where Upton had an assessment and Mendon didn't. Last year was one of them. They didn't have an assessment. They didn't have an increase in their assessment. And it's based on how those minimum contribution numbers come out, because the way you calculate this is you take out all the predetermined numbers, the rest is split by the enrollment percentage. As far as capital debt, that's a big question. There will be a debt service for some of the money that we have borrowed for the projects that are ongoing. It's fairly low this year. We borrowed about $9 million right now. So those are how they break out. I still have to do some mathematical calculations to determine what amount of the Fields project can be applicable to CPA funding. I know both towns are using CPA to offset the debt. I still have to figure out a calculation to come up with that. I've been given a list of what's eligible. I think I should be able to come up with a percentage that X percent of the project is CPA eligible and divide the debt in that way. So I have to still work on that one, but that's basically the debt service as of right now. That's outside the levy.
And I can jump in. I know last year when we did the budget, we talked about capital as well. If at the end, if you have questions on where we're at with the capital projects and we're here, I'm more than happy to, tell you where we're at too.
They're completely done. As far as our budget,
Not yet.
I wish.
Yeah.
As far as our budget goes, if you look at the last 11 years, we've grown at about a 2.6% rate, which is a fairly nominal growth, I think. And that's our budget. That's not our assessments to the town. That's our total budget. And then it's back to Maureen. We kind of have a tag team.
I know, so far. I'm going to give a couple highlights on how we have a needs-based budget that we are bringing forward, and it's grounded in our strategic priorities and also some of the needs of our students that we've identified. On the next slide, we always have guiding principles for our work. So we have student-centered decision-making, where students are at the center of everything that we're doing. And with our mission to empower all learners to thrive, it is to thrive in all areas. Not just some. And it's a needs-based fiscal foundation this year to sustain what we have, but also to focus on some of the compliance issues that have come up because we've been short-staffed a little bit in some areas, and I'll talk about that briefly. And we're really trying to be transparent as possible, so we'll kind of explain how we've been doing that as well. On the next slide is the transparency, and just to point out the arrow where we're at, we just had the open budget hearing, but we've had at least 15 to 16 different budget presentations. They all can be found on our website. We have departments present, all the data's up there, the slides are up there, the video's up there, and we'll continue to add this after and add additional information. So if anyone has questions about anything, we will keep putting it up there. So if questions come forward, let us know. In our budget, I've always kind of had this in all of my presentations. We want to stay above that bottom line. That above that line is that level service budget where we're maintaining class sizes, program services that are currently provided that the community wants. We've been hovering the last couple of years at that dotted line and actually have made some reductions, but really at that lower level of that level service budget. We never want to go into a reduced service budget, and particularly if we were not to have the funding that we need this year with all these rising fixed costs, the reductions I'll talk about will be really significant. What we're coming forward is a needs-based budget, and it's to address some of the critical and mandated needs of our students and to maintain compliance. Some years we've been able to strategically add a position, like I talked about the instructional coach. Most school districts have multiple instructional coaches to help with teaching and learning and to help teachers. We were able to bring in one who was shared across 2 schools, and we've seen some improvements. That was one strategic investment in 1 year. So that's an example of something that we've done. A focus this year, one of our positions is related to Clough Elementary School teacher to maintain our class sizes, our averages. We want to have definitely below 25, and we have set numbers that we try to maintain, and it's around 20 to 22-ish. And right now they're currently at 25. We didn't bring this forward a year ago because we actually had move-ins, and so it just grew to 25 over the course of the year. And so that's one position that we're looking at in our budget. Other positions are to meet the mandated student support needs. So I'll just go quickly on this, but there's a lot of additional information up there. My number one position is this MISCO special education teacher that we need, and it's for compliance reasons. We have a number of students coming up to the middle school, and we reduced a middle school special educator. I don't know if you recall me talking about in previous years, we had a smaller cohort of students coming through. They're at the high school now. We made a reduction at the high school in special ed and a reduction at the middle school in special ed. And what we found, it was really difficult to meet all of the needs. I mean, I'm not saying we're not meeting needs, right, for anyone watching, but with the scheduling, it's been pretty hard, and we know we have a large group coming up to the middle school, so that's the highest priority. And also the way the schedule works at the high school, it's been difficult with that reduction. We thought we could do it, but where it's been actually, it's impacted what we've been able to provide. School psychologists. We have a couple school psychologists in our district right now. They do evaluation. So if you have some concerns and you're referring your child to be evaluated, they do this evaluation. In our district, they do psychological evaluations, but also cognitive and academic. That is sometimes done not done by special educators in other districts. Here, our psychologists do all of that. And it's jumped, the caseload has jumped in the last number of years from 71 to anticipated over 100. And if you are able to have an additional school psychologist, it will allow us to then also have direct service to kids, which we can't do now because they're too busy doing evaluation. So it will help reduce some of the mental health needs that and support those needs. And we'll, especially at the elementary level. At the for our English language teachers, we have mandates for the number of hours. So if you're a newcomer coming in and don't speak any English and you just moved to the country, there's a certain number of minutes that you need to be provided of instruction. And what we're finding, we have 3 EL teachers straddled across 4 buildings, and they all have different schedules. So the only way they can try to meet the needs is by pulling students out of their core instruction as they're going between the schools, which is then hindering their learning in those classes as well. By having the additional EL teacher, we'll meet the compliance, which we were cited for not having enough staffing by the state. And it also will solve the scheduling issue and the fact that we're pulling them out of like this tier 1 instruction. And so this was one of the top priorities that many of our administrators and teachers brought forward. So all of this is about meeting mandated student needs this year. So when we look at how it's laid out, if we were to come forward just with level service budget, it would be the addition of those 2 teachers. We're coming forward with a needs-based budget. That's what the school committee was recommending. And I always like to show what we're not including, things that were asked for that we know would be strategic and helping us move forward as a district and the ongoing unmet needs over the years. On the next slide, you have the bridge. All right, some of you have seen this. So we're looking for community support.
No more guy looking over.
Right, yeah, no, because it's on the bridge. Great. But you have community support's essential to bridge us into the future. And that's what we're hoping that we'll be able to receive. And here, I just want to identify we're at this critical juncture. And the last time we were here was about 11 years ago. It's either a path towards reduction in services or a path to continue being an exceptional district and continued improvements and success for our students. And just to emphasize, we have managed, especially with some of the funds in great management here by Jay, et cetera, some competitive grants where go after every grant that we can, the reallocations, reductions that I've talked about that we've gone 11 years from the last time that we have been at a juncture like this. So in the 2 paths we have, if we look into the future, the FY27 budget, these are some of the things that we're targeting. We didn't talk in this presentation about the high quality instructional materials, but just know K-8, we've had a curriculum review around ELA literacy materials that have high quality curriculum materials. It's the most important thing we can do is to teach our students to read. And this is number 1, a priority. We have to have those materials. We want to keep our classroom sizes effective, increase mental health supports, and ensure that we have compliance meeting the needs of all of our students. All of the rest are the items that have been either cut out of our budget over many years. We call this the snowplow effect. We keep pushing them down the road. And also things that in the towns that parents have asked for us, like, why don't you have a late bus? Why don't you have this? How, why don't you have the library media specialist at the middle school return? Why didn't we have the technology teacher that was cut return at the high school? Why don't we have this program? It's because, we're frugal, we're responsible, and we're meeting our needs, but these are strategic needs that have been unmet. On impact of a reduced budget, if you look at staff reductions in my presentation a few weeks ago, I said it was 45 plus as we're working through this process, and we're not quite at the 4.1 million of cuts. It's more than 60 positions, and that's out of 400 staff in our whole district across all units. Some impact of that, and this is if we did not receive the funding, average class sizes could, especially at elementary, could go up to as high as 34. We'd be reducing elective offerings across every grade level. It would be elimination of student clubs and activities because we have stipends that we would have to cut that pay for the teachers who run those. It would be scaling back some of the investments we've made in the last few years for these programs, that are therapeutic programs and additional counseling supports. When you reduce to the core, then those, and if you have to reduce, let's say at the high school at, let's pick, the ELA, math, science, social studies, just as an example, we won't be able to teach the AP courses that our students are taking and then able to have outstanding outcomes when they graduate from our district. We have Spanish immersion program. We would not fill some of those or combine. I'm not going to read everything on the list, but the further impact that happens is the beginning of what I call the spiral, the downward spiral that happens in other districts that have had overrides and failed overrides and lack of investment. It scales you back. The last time that there were major cuts, like really large cuts in our district, was back in 2010. And so we're 16 years beyond that, and we have built back to a really solid, exceptional district. But it took us 15 years to build back that through our strategic work and our plans. And just to point that out, we would lose high quality staff. You would have school choice. If you can't take in school choice for that revenue because you cut classes. There aren't now there's no room in any of those classes in order to do it. And you'd have the spiral of people, like I talked about earlier, leaving the district, and then funds leaving in lots of different ways as well.
But to that point.
Yeah.
If you had a kid who was choiced in, you have to keep them, right?
Yes.
Yep. And then we get that income every year that we're
Right.
here. So you tend to do it like early on, and then you have that set.
No, I just wanted the people to understand it.
No, that's good to know. Yeah, you can't say you have to leave,
Yeah,
because
you
you're not
don't
a
belong
rep, like
here.
you're
If you
school
take them in
choice,
the
you're
grade-
ended up and you're us.
If
you
you
know,
take them in first grade, you own
Yep.
them to the 12th.
That's true. Yep.
At the same time, though, if you start to do services and reduce services, you're gonna have more people
People
choice out.
Yeah.
And if you don't take choice in, you still have to pay the choice out.
Yeah, and that's what's happened. So like in Northbridge is an example, and I'm good friends with the superintendent there, and they've had some failed overrides, and what's happened is majority of school choice that come here are from Northbridge or from places where, in Uxbridge too, so that, as an example, that's what happens. So we're just at this critical juncture. It's about what, that we're asking for support from all of you. We're asking for support from the community, and more than happy to answer further questions. But thank you for your time.
Not bad.
How fast was that?
One of you perhaps,
Tried.
I don't think you mentioned it, target share.
Target share, yeah, I didn't get into all
Yeah,
the
we
details of target share. So target share is when the state says this is what percentage the town should pay as opposed to what percentage the state should pay. The average is 51-49, 51 being local, 49 being the state. We are at the top tier of target share. The cap is 82.5% right now. Both towns are at 82.5%. Last year, Upton was a little bit lower, which is why their minimum contribution was so much higher than Mendon's. That's why it's kind of part of why it's evened out this year. But we are at target share. Now, the funny thing about target share, it's like charter tuition. It changes every year, so it's a moving target. So where you're at 82.5 this year, you could be at 79% next year. We'll find out next year when they release the information. But because of that, they look at the two towns and they say, we're going to give you the minimum and we expect the communities to pay the rest. It's just kind of the way it works.
What was the target share going back to like 2016 or whatever that When you say,
We were around 68 or 69%, I believe, both towns in that vicinity.
Yeah, it's right around there.
Yeah,
Remember
but
that?
they were
Yeah.
pushing us toward target share, so they were pushing more and more for local aid.
And the target share then was like 82%.
Well, now 82.5 is where we're at, correct?
Way back then, the only, like Westboro and Hopkinton were the only ones that I.
Yeah,
recall.
well, there's
They were-
191 at 82.5% now, so over
Yeah.
half the districts are up there at this point. And I don't know if that's because the state doesn't want to spend the money or they don't have the money. I can't give you a rationale behind it. I, have spent many years trying to understand some of the things that state government does, and I've decided that I don't. I only understand so much. I can't solve all their problems.
Just a general question, and I see what you're doing. It's in that psychological, the need for that psychologist for the students.
Mhm.
You said before, maybe 75 students had to avail themselves, and you're projecting 100 coming forth. So you're proactive. I appreciate that. But has there been any study done in the state to say what is causing the big increase that you're going to see? I mean, has there been anything to substantiate what's
So
going on in the background that's causing the additional needs?
I'll answer that slightly different from how you asked it, but then make sure I'm getting to answering to your question. With the numbers where it says 71 to 100, it's because we have so few school psychologists, it's more just of a numbers thing that it's just they're burnt out. They aren't able to keep up with the amount of hours to do all those evaluations. So part of it is we'll be able to even that out, keep high quality staff. And then it'll allow us with the position to start offering services that are direct where you could have like, small groups and social groups and with the students. So that's like part of the reason for it. To answer your question, after COVID, there is a large increase in needs for our students. So that we have been in this like recovery phase since COVID. And I think in our district, we've done a really good job of building in. We used to have like contracted services where we would pay them probably sometimes more, right? To come in, do the evaluation and go out and or provide like a little bit of consulting, go out, and we brought some staff on board. So like a BCBA is someone, a staff member that we've done that, and they bring them in, and now having them in staff, they're around all the time to support like our students on the autism spectrum and support our staff and be able to provide like targeted support in districts. We brought some in over the last 5 years, which has helped us and keep students in our district. But it is, to your question, that it's post-pandemic. Yeah, primarily.
social media.
Yeah,
Well, mental health is pretty much a national issue.
so the
It's been
combination in the both, right? With cell phones and then social media and then the things that have happened as a result of lack of socialization, et cetera, or like in the early years when we were teaching online and not being able to, teach them the social skills that you normally would get in like pre-K and KN1. So all of the students are with us right now. And so we're working on building those skills in, which requires more staff to help do that.
This issue with the school psychologist, this came up long before you assumed the watch. This was in the last, Joe was here 3 or 4 years after
Yeah.
I recall having these first discussions about psychologists.
Yeah, no, it's
We
definitely.
contracted for quite some
Yeah.
time. It became apparent that we'd be able to better serve needs by having.
My point is,
there all the
this
time.
isn't something that just happened. Yes, this is going back 8 or 10 years.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you look at that far left budget, we've been looking at the same things in that left column for a while.
yeah, and that's part of like
Some of them,
saying this note.
some of them are moving.
And then we have one targeted and all of that, but and we're trying to be strategic with it, and that's why I kind of have the leveling of the priorities, and then we decide I always ask the team to tell me what you need, advocate for what you need. It's important for people to know. We know that we won't ever have all the funding, for everything that you identify. We prioritize that and we come forward and have, targeted, and sometimes it's less, sometimes it's a little more, but, and sometimes if we don't need something here with a staff member for enrollment drop somewhere, then we do move it when we can. So we do that as well. Which we did last year. We moved some staff from the high school when that small group came in. And then we moved them to fill 2 8th grade positions at the middle school that we had cut for previous years. That's one example. Questions?
Yeah, I just have a question for the school committee, if I may. So I know when you ran for school committee one of the years ago, this is way back machine now. One of the things I remember you talking about that was compelling, you sort of said like, hey, look at how are we performing relative to other school districts, right? Like if we're going to pay more for a service, are we getting a better product and how do we know that? So given you're several years into it now and you've seen this, do you feel like if we go to the voters and they support this override, that we'll be getting what we're paying for relative to other communities who are investing in their school systems?
I do. I think there's always room for improvement, but I think the community spoke at the budget hearing and there was a lot of support for it. I was actually one of the people having conversations with Jay and Maureen about, do we reduce costs? Do we just bring a small override for it? I said, I think this is an opportunity to really go for needs based. All right, let's go for the 4.1. We're not going strategic. And I think I mentioned this at the joint meeting, but I do want to get to strategic. I do think we're a great district, but in order to get to strategic, we need to work with you guys every year and really be strategic about that budget. I think there's room for improvement. I think a lot of how we work with the union and negotiate with them, there's a lot of room for improvement there. But as far as our teachers go, our administration goes, and our budget management, I think we're in good shape.
I appreciate the perspective. Thanks.
And I can, just because you asked about achievement, all that, so I'm gonna jump in, right?
That's what we're here for.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Give me more ammo.
right, we have, I mean, in all the additional slides, I mean, we
Yeah.
sent you like the multi-board, and we just reorganized it a bit, or the budget hearing.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're being featured, we're being recognized, and that doesn't happen just because it happens. It's because we're doing incredible things. And some of it is that experiential, we're so focused on deeper learning and authentic learning experiences for our students at the high school level that I could just put them in front of you and they can say, these are all the things that we did this week. You know, these are all the opportunities that we had. We had students going to like a cyber range and learning about cybersecurity, and you know, that there are costs to that. You need a bus to go there. You need teachers who can bring them. You need administration that can coordinate that. But we're so strategic right now in our work that I can tie when I say return on investment, we've invested in this and it's led to this. And is there room for growth? Yeah, that's why we need the ELA materials. We're not where we need to be with literacy. You know, we have too many students that still need some interventions because our materials aren't where they need to be. We have a student performance gap for students on IEPs that we added that goal this year, and these positions are going to help close that gap for our students. It won't happen in 1 year. It's going to happen over years, just like we've seen with other items. So I can always answer questions on that if people in the community want to know like what is the value of the dollar and what we're getting out of it and how it helps the community too, because we have a lot more community connections happening right now too. Thank you.
I would also mention the flip side, 60 reductions is crushing. So if you all of a sudden decide you don't want to pay for that, there's going to be a big reduction in services, which is far worse than.
Huge.
I don't have kids in the system, so
yeah,
that doesn't mean as much, but to say, well, wait a minute, our school's gonna, all of a sudden go from, wherever you want to call it, mid to high tier to lower, then that's a.
Big hit. It's a big hit.
Yeah.
Definitely changes the student experience and the teacher experience.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, it impacts everything that we've,
I mean, there's
everything, yeah.
Sort of in just 2 comments and then sort of I'll be done. So one is, I've got a 4th grader going into 5th grade and an 8th grader going into 9th grade. So I see firsthand what my experience is, and it's excellent. I mean, the education, the support, the experiences, the leadership opportunities, the athletic, like just every aspect of what I see each of them experiencing firsthand is great. And I've been very, very happy with the journey all the way from pre-K up through, 8th grade and going into high school next year. So personally, like I'm a big fan and a big supporter of the system, and I think it's working great and you all are doing amazing work. fantastic. The other part of it is sort of, having been on the select board for 10 years or so, I've sort of seen a little bit of the story arc. And I know, right, like we've been talking about this for a long time, and you've really been rolling up your sleeves and figuring it out for several years more than I think, at least I anticipated. I thought for sure we were gonna do the community center and you were gonna come back the next year and it was gonna be like, all right, we gotta do this now. And you've really made it work, right?
It did come back.
Was it a year later, the capital, our project?
So I don't forget about the debt.
Yeah, so I just want to sort of point that out, right? Just to recognize that effort has been sort of, yeoman's work to get this far without having to go for an override. And I think it's, at some point, the structural issues exist and you've just got to deal with them. And so we rip the Band-Aid off, we do this, it supports the schools, it supports the students, it helps with our valuations, it sort of a rising tide rises all boats. And this is certainly an example of that. And you know what? We're going to have to do it again at some point, whether it's 11 years or not, I don't know. But, this is just the reality of the funding model that the state's building.
I mean, as a district, we're not thrilled with coming forward with this large of an increase in the local level. It's not like something we just, oh my God, we get to do this now.
No, this is.
We used to say years ago that about every 5 years you needed an infusion of revenue. We didn't do it for 11. Had you done it 5 years and then 5 years, it would have been the equivalent of this, but you would have been paying it for that 5 years in between.
Yeah.
We recognize the request that's here. It's not like, we don't understand the impact that it's going to have on everybody.
Yeah.
It's really a matter of choice of what do you want your school district to be and what do you want your community to be.
Yeah.
And we were, coming in hoping that maybe we could manage another year as well. I mean, that was always the goal. But with the fixed costs, like with health insurance, et cetera, and then adding special ed, it was just far beyond, we couldn't cut ourselves and make the reductions without them being actual, like, reduced service, which as a superintendent, I can't advocate for that.
And to Jim's point about, the different versions of the budget, had we come forward with a service on a huge difference there, but even a reduced service, you'd still be asking for an override. So we want you to pay more, but we're going to give you less for it.
Yeah.
That's not really what we want to do as a district.
I've been asked this question by several people.
Mhm.
Do you know this last year at budget time? We're going to come back with a whack after we went after the 33 million.
Not this large,
No.
no. We kind of knew that.
It was
we were gonna
possible in
do
the
that.
next couple of years, but we, like I just said, we did not know that we would be hit with some of these external,
I mean, quite honestly, from my perspective, I've only got a little bit of time left in my role. Could I have avoided this?
I hope you have more time in your personal.
Yes, but if I could have avoided having to go through this, I would have loved going through this. Yes, Paul, I'm hoping to have another good 10 or 20 years.
yeah,
Harass each other.
Yes, right.
yeah.
To see the antique buildings.
And
right?
the other thing too, would just talk about it, because I know it can be confusing, the difference between like debt exclusions and what a capital project is, and when you have the operational override, and it's like, and I'm preaching to the choir here, so I know you know this, but it's the emphasis of like, we wanted to secure the home, like the house, right? We're making sure the roof's not falling off our house, but we still have rising utilities and operational costs that we need to, it's the operational costs, and that's how we're gonna try to answer the question for people who don't know the difference between the two, because they are very different.
One of the questions I've been asked is, well, why can't you just not do the capital projects and use that money for the operational budget? You don't get to do that. There are different things. As a matter of fact, you can't even mix the 3 projects that were approved.
Yeah.
They can't mix with each other. Anything that was voted for the fields can't be used for the facilities or vice, opposite. They're very specific to what the cause was.
Right.
And just to provide a little more ammo for you, like if we don't do an override or it doesn't pass, there's dead money spent, right? Like the cost of employment, school choice out, charter tuition, out of school placements, like it's a lot of dead money on top of it. So.
But the question, and you've heard me say this, all these budget meetings I go. Oh, this is the bottom line right here? I don't care what the bottom line is. How much is it gonna cost me? That's what people want to know.
Right, and so
So,
the answer to that is, I've said this before, we as a school district, we don't determine that there's gonna be an override. The towns make that determination based on what they feel they can fund within their levy. Once each town says, this is the amount we can go to, that's what the override's gonna be, is the difference between those two. I can
You
calculate.
did a hell of
tax
a job
impact.
dodging the answer. didn't you?
Well,
Well, tell me what the override is, I'll tell you the tax impact.
yeah, I mean, we,
2.4.
I was gonna say, you have the calculator, you had the calculator
Yeah,
for the
so
capital
what-
I
last
still
year.
have it.
Just right, it's
It's a
the
matter
same
of fact.
calculator, it's the same math.
He already has.
But it's not just the override. You got 33 million that's debt excluded and.
30, yes.
Nobody is telling us how much that's gonna impact the
Oh,
taxes.
407,
Plus,
407.
That's for this year, but if you wanna go through the whole project.
we through the whole process.
Right.
It's Still gonna.
Right, so the tax calculator that's on our capital
407
site
total.
is there, it can tell you that for all the
That
projects.
would be a
Yeah.
good thing to do too. I mean,
Yeah.
because now you're getting, now it's starting to come. on.
yeah,
I
we
get it.
understand that. Absolutely, we do.
And
We really do.
still- It's still
Well, and if Steve has it, why don't you tell us what it is?
that
I'll
you're
write it
going
down.
to have.
That's
I don't
all.
have the
I'm
individual.
sorry, I missed what you said, Paul. I missed what you said, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
You're going to have the normal increase in taxes due to your 2.5% in new growth, which enables you to, in our case, maybe $900,000 more. So that's, nobody's, when we hate, this is what, they're saying, this is what the debt exclusion is gonna cost. This is what the override for the school is gonna cost. You have to add in what this normal tax increase is gonna add. Okay?
We're comparing it to the current tax rate. And
Right,
what Paul
it'll
is
be
saying
higher,
is that you have to assume the tax levy is gonna go up and also the assessments are
Gonna
gonna
change over.
It's separate.
20 years or
The
30
levy
years.
stuff
It has
a
to.
lot.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
Well, no, we're assuming the tax rate, the current tax rate, so the current assessments by the taxes, so you get your tax rate. And then what we're assuming, and everything that everyone ever talks about, is the current tax rate, so this year's tax rate. Just if there was another 2.4 million on top of that, that's what the increase is. What Paul's saying is you're missing the additional amount, but it's not exactly adding 800 plus the 2.4, because the 800 will offset with assessment, so. Don't want to confuse everybody.
Tax rate back, you back into your tax
What
rate
are the
based
numbers?
on property values.
Do you
Is
want
it a secret or?
No, do you know how much the town can fund with
I
the
don't.
levy?
Paul said Steve knows the numbers. I'm messing.
You're welcome to share. I
Yeah,
do
if
have those.
Kenny's on, he
numbers as
can-
Well, Kenny,
Kenny-
if
Kenny-
Kenny want to present them.
Kenny, can you help us with
Because
this?
to Paul's point, that's what people ultimately are gonna say, like, okay, so yeah, this is all great, these are huge numbers, what is it gonna mean for me when I'm
Yeah,
paying
and,
it?
and
Like,
we can't
examples
give
of
that tax impact until we know
Yeah.
from both towns, like what
Yeah.
you would
What's
be
within
putting
that?
on, and then we can do it and we can, you know, we've done an approximate, you know.
Kenny is here, Kenny answered the question.
But
So,
I
I just
You
got.
He's on now, just on.
Is that the number we?
He unmuted,
If they-
we'll ask him,
Kenny, can you help us?
Yes,
just do
I
it.
can help you.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. As Steve had mentioned, we can't predict the future. We can't predict what fiscal year 27 and values, as well. I can share with you, so the 2.5 auto, the 2.5 levy, the automatic is 648,000, just to use round numbers. We're estimating new growth of $300,000. We do have one debt exclusion for the community center, which is 490,000. We also have some water as well, which is 101,000. And I'm just using, round numbers. And then also too, we're talking with the improvements to the fields, equipment, the recent loan authorizations from the last meeting, that's 407,173 in debt service. That's a number that Jay had shared with us. So we're, with all of that being said, the tax impact will vary depending on if we, looking at a $250,000 assessed home, that the impact would be $515, and this is all including the operational override for Mendon Upton and BVT of just under 2.6 million. So the 250, would be $515 impact, an annual impact. And looking at $1,050,000, we're talking about a $2,163 impact. The rate was $13.08 in fiscal year 26. So looking at, with all these increases, if they all impacted the fiscal year 26 tax rate, we'd be looking at $15.14 per thousand. And again, this is all estimated as part of fiscal year 26. But we have a tax impact rate sheet that that we utilized that can be shared.
I'm looking at the same chart, Kenny, and I can tell you, I don't think there's anything in either town for 250,000.
No.
Except perhaps a play school shed.
Yeah.
The chart I'm looking at, if you figure the average house is approximately 750,000, some lower, some higher. That impact on this chart says it'll be $1,545 a year.
Correct.
Down this year's tax rate.
Based on 26.
Right, so
Is
what
that
is the average
Penny?
house value?
Hold on.
Median house, it should be
Median house.
median house.
Penny, is that the median house, 750?
Correct.
He said 250.
All right, and then what's the number that goes along with 750? I got the million is 2163.
Yeah, the 750 is 1,545. No, my initial was just, we have a tax sheet, like a assessed value from 250 all the way. I mean, we can also go up to as high as just, a little bit over 2.5 million. So we do have a rate, an estimated tax calculator.
Right, so with the debt exclusions, with 2.5, sort of the normal increases in everything, and the override, we're talking about for the average household, $750,000, we're talking about $128 a month increase in taxes.
This year, based on this tax.
Right, I took 1,545 divided by 12, so it's $128 a month.
One thing to clarify, what Kenny included was the school debt, override for Mendon Upton, override for BVT, and the DPW building. So that includes
Correct.
all of them. So
Yes.
it's not just the school.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make it clear. 'cause you had
Well,
originally-
I was like, that is not
I
what
knew
we.
the number for us, and I was like, it's a little high.
I did guess.
To clarify too, if anybody wants to see, this is an email that Kenny had shared with us that I did send out to the board Sunday morning. So it's the email dated 11:48 a.m. if you're looking for it, if you're looking at this email. And it has the property tax impact for all different levels of house cost, as well as the breakdown within the body of the email for each of the impacts for the overrides, the debt exclusions, previous and current. So it does break it out. Sure, absolutely.
Because one thing that we need to be clear is to be able to communicate from a school perspective when people ask what is the impact and what that override specifically is. We have to be able to be clear, yeah.
I can send it to you.
Because that, we'll put, once we have.
Kristen
the
can
numbers
forward it
presented,
to you
we'll
as
put it
well.
on the website, and then people can get that.
Do you want to put one caveat on that though? And
Yeah.
Kenny's probably about to preempt me on this. This is an estimate. So I always go estimate.
Totally.
Depending on how everything factors out. So I wouldn't put those numbers out
Yeah.
as this is the gospel. It's often a range that I've
It's gonna change
given.
when the assessments and.
I try to tell people, the tax rate is a function, what you raise and appropriate versus the total assessed value of the town. And those are moving numbers until you make up the recap sheet. Is that a fair statement, Mr. Costa?
That is correct.
Thank you.
It's all an estimate.
Yeah,
So the best estimate. that
best we can do, and that's what we need to be able to communicate.
The question I have is, like, right now, this budget is looking at about a little under 2.4 million as a net increase to the town. Are you saying here tonight that all that will go on an override as opposed to you will fund some within the levy and reduce that a little bit? Or are you saying it all goes to an override?
I'm not sure that has been decided yet. I'll speak for the finance committee because, I am not one in favor of putting it all on the schools. That the town has to, I'm saying, what the normal increase to the school would be, take that out of the levy. And then whatever more is needed, but that's not a decision that I can make. That's a decision over here.
So
Kenny can, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, so from our perspective, the sooner we have what that's gonna be, the better we can then communicate what.
The school specific pieces.
Yeah, yes. I mean, because I've done the same tax impact and I just put in 750,000 as the average house. And based on what I thought was potentially fundable within the levy, it was about 920. So a little bit less than what you're saying if it all goes to the overrides. Again, just helps us as far as communicating where we're landing.
Yeah, and I think the key thing that we'll have to think about sort of as a group, right, is like, what's the story at the beginning of town meeting, right? Because I could literally envision a world where we just put up a chart and say, here's what each one is. This is what you're about to vote on. So that people know.
You really want to scare them away, huh?
I want to be, I want to be transparent about
No, I
what we're
agree.
talking about.
I agree.
Like, we're
People
asking
have to
them
know
to
what
buy
they're voting.
something.
Right.
We should tell them how much it's gonna cost.
I agree.
And honestly, I think
I get that
sometimes
though,
it
in our,
comes,
in our recommendation, they actually see what's going up. They see all that. If
they
read it.
do.
We can show it to them again.
I think, if I can, I think sometimes people talk about it per thousand, per 100,000, and I think really people need to know if, four numbers, if your house is 500,000, if your house is 750, if your house is
That's actually what I have.
I mean, if you break those three numbers down,
That's-
this is at the end of the year, because people don't get the per month. I mean, you all know I'm in real estate. People don't even look at their tax bills. It comes out with their mortgage and they have no clue what it is. And they're gonna gasp because they're gonna find out that all of a sudden they can't afford groceries. But I do think those three, I think it needs to be very transparent, but I think it needs to be on a yearly impact on perhaps those three numbers, 5, 750, $1 million.
I've always been,
Because that covers everything there. I can tell you right now, there's nothing in either town for sale, less than $500,000.
I've always done it like 400,000 to 900,000, $100,000 increments.
Yeah.
You can change it on my chart, but that's
Yeah.
the Excel sheet that I set up.
But I
for it.
think-
Because the one thing I always want to be careful about, because I've heard about this in other towns, that sometimes people only hear the sound bite, right? They're not in it like we're in it and understanding. So if they hear, wait, I heard they said it's, 900, 900 or it's 800, but that's like at this level. So it's important to like, every time we're communicate, like these are the levels, because some people, it's just failed because of misinformation rather than like.
To your point,
Right, yeah.
to your point, Maureen, that's why meetings like this cause problems. Because people, I heard this number.
They could have
Right.
just heard what Kenny said and that's it.
Yeah,
and-
I know.
And it's gone.
I mean, they don't want.
You could have heard what Brett said, 120.
They don't want-
Just, I think why I just said that, I just said be careful because that's come up elsewhere.
Bad for the average person?
But,
Just kidding, it clearly is bad.
so what we're throwing numbers around.
Break it down.
Again, I think we're based, some of these things are based on facts, not in evidence. Because I don't think anybody has said we're gonna put the full whack from BBT on an override. So
That's why I wanted to clarify, because it seemed like a big number just for the school, and it
Yeah.
includes
Okay,
the DPW, it includes
Yeah.
everything that we've
gotcha.
Yeah, I didn't know.
kind of summarized.
And with this,
Yeah,
No, this is only additional, this is all just new, that's on
just
here.
new, well, it's best to show everything.
That's included in the 1308 though.
Could I add?
Thank you,
one thing?
Kenny. Yeah.
So the total amount, I was looking for my worksheet, I found it. So the total amount that would be added to the levy, it's about 4.1 million. And the operating override would be just under 2.6 million. We have the debt exclusion for the school, for the capital, 407,000. And then the DPW facility, we're estimating a $17 million borrowing, interest rate 3.75, 25-year. So it'd be a little bit over $1 million on that. And as you know, the debt exclusion, that's for a number of years. Once the debt is paid off, it does go away. An override for operating, that's a permanent increase, each year. So there's no sunset on that. So it's those 4 items that we talked about, and that would be the impact on the tax rate. And you are correct. I mean, typically, we would be looking anywhere around 750, which is 1,545 to perhaps like $1 million, which is 2,163,000. So that's probably, that's an accurate, probably range to be thinking about for most residents or most taxpayers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I go back to what I said in other meetings. A lot of people in this town can't pay that tax bill for what it is now.
And well, you heard Tanya, 29% of our population is elderly. And then.
I'm one of them, so is Maureen.
Don't be speaking for me.
Me too. I'm just still working because my retirement plan is to go out feet first. Well, hey, Rick, you got left out of it. Good for you. Did you?
Can I ask another question? Have you guys presented the Mendon? What's we're 60% of the population, but our town's usually supportive of the override in the past. We haven't had one in many years. We're usually supportive. Mendon is usually the wild card. Thoughts on-
Most of them were at the multi-board meeting.
Yeah.
And so that, was a good conversation. Not everybody was there. They haven't requested us to, I'm going to reach out tomorrow just to be like, when do you want us to come? Because we're more than happy to go and speak to them again, but.
Yeah, they gave me a target number, like this is what we'll fund within the levy. For like a month ago. So I kind of know where we stand there. It doesn't mean it's going to pass, but we have talked to them. And some of them were at the hearing. They were fairly positive, but again, it's not so much the people like in this room here. It's all the voters out there that you have to get to.
The hearing seemed like more Upton people than Mendon people. That's why I ask. There's a lot of support. Everyone who's got up.
Yeah. They've been at most of our budget subcommittee meetings, so they kind of know where.
Yeah, they've had some reps coming, so they've been, they've heard some of the presentation.
I think the support last year for the capital
was pretty
was positive,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's sort of, at least to me, is a little bit of an indicator. It doesn't mean anything, right? But it's certainly a little bit of an indicator to say there's support for the schools. This is different, but
Yeah,
right.
and I don't think most of the community knows, like members of the community are. I've been putting in I have a newsletter that goes out to all the school community, and I've been since December, tough budget year, these are the fixed costs, I've been trying to give details as I go, but I don't know if it's registered yet, but I think within the next few weeks, we wanted to kind of.
Steve's gonna let folks know. We'll be good.
Yeah.
And I think Mr. McCall,
Yeah, there you go. You can ask them tonight if you want.
Rick, from the people you and I would talk to, this is a well-kept secret.
Yeah, it is. It hasn't gotten out to the general.
No, I mean,
It's not nothing.
you see we're not alone. It's across the state. But more towns have been a lot more vocal about it. I don't think the population knows it's coming, but
What do we have to do to promote that or advertise that?
Have a newspaper or something, you can get something.
well,
that's.
So I could say a couple of things just to answer that one question, and I'm sorry, Steve, I don't know if he was asking. We will present to anybody, just like we did with the capital. If anyone, we can come back 1,000 times to, get that out and push that out and answer the facts. There are family members, there are parents who are going to be putting together like information to try to get it out to, the community. They'll be doing that, just like MUCP did that to get facts out, like on social media, they'll be doing that. But I think part of it was just coming here and talking to Mendon as well and kind of understanding kind of where we stood and moving forward, and planning for the meetings too. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just kind of second what Maureen said here. We wanted to make sure we were aligned and on the same page. We don't want to tell people, hey, we're going for an override, but we don't have the support of you folks, FinCom and Mendon, right? There's a lot of people at the table. So we want to make sure that what we're bringing to them is we're kind of all on the same page and give them I know, I agree, we're sort of late to the game. You look at across the boundary over in Grafton there, and they've been talking about it for 4 months.
But that's only because they
Yeah, I know.
didn't pass one last year.
Yeah, exactly. Right. They're on a.
They didn't put it on.
Well,
They were fighting to put it on.
A lot of extenuating circumstances, and we're
Yeah.
behind the budget game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
We've been running fast and playing catch up, and I think Kristen has stopped counting her days, and I think she's now into week 4. She hasn't run yet.
Oh, no.
So that helps.
Hours and days are gone.
Yeah, she was still more like.
That's great. I've always been here.
Probably feels like she's
Floating
been
in the
here
background.
forever, because she's been totally immersed,
But the fact of the matter is, simple fact of the matter is, this has to go to a ballot, has to go on the ballot. And it needs 2 of 3 of those 3 people, they're sitting there to vote to put it on the ballot.
What's the deadline for when you, like, you have to get your ballots printed, so what's the
April
deadline
7th,
for
I
sending
think,
the ballots to the printer?
April's not.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
Well,
Next meeting would be.
yeah.
She has it on the next. But once you have that vote, then it's official. So just like in Bellingham, they're going for like a 3.1 million override for the schools. And that campaign of communication was launched after it was official. Just like in Grafton, they just finally agreed to put something on and the ballot, and then the communications can kind of go out too. So I think there's part of the communications with it. I looked last year to see where we were at in our presentations on capital, and we are within 1 week of when we started communicating across the board on capital. So I don't think it feels compressed, but we're only about a week behind-ish on.
Sort of crescendo people's awareness.
Yeah.
Vote as opposed to having it linger for 6 months. It doesn't necessarily.
And every time we present here, whatever questions that you have, like we want to clarify, we know that we're not always clear on everything all the time. And like, okay, that was a question. Next time we present, let's answer that question. And so it's important to get what your feedback is too, in order to help drive what we're talking about and communicating. So
If I can jump in there, because I think Steve Italian's, he's in the audience, former selectman, and he had some questions.
Just one.
Okay.
I'll keep it short because I know you're late. It has been mentioned, Steve Battalion, 161 South Street, in case that makes us legal. Quick question. It has been mentioned that capital payment, that our assessment of $407,000 based on those 3 warrant articles passed last year, totaling $33 million. How much of that $33 million has been expended? How much of it's been long-term financed? So I'm trying to get a feel for, we're absorbing that 407,000 as a capital payment. But if we're only a third of the way through the project, that means that 407,000 is really going to be 1.2, 1.4, whatever rates are doing, whatever dollars are in the future.
All right, so we have borrowed so far, so the debt service is based on what we borrowed so far, so we borrowed 9 million. Of the 30 million that was approved, about 4 million is going to be covered by the MSBA for the roof and HVAC project, the roof mainly, the roof project in Nipmuc. We've got a couple of grants that will offset some of those other costs for some other projects that were part of it. So I'm estimating that we're probably going to end up having to borrow a total of around 24 million, somewhere in there, 25 million ballpark. So, right, so you've got 9 million now, so we're not going to do another long-term borrowing till we're done with the project. The next borrowing we're going to do is going to be a short-term band. And we'll wait, and we'll do those like 2 years in a row, and whatever's necessary, so that we get all the construction done, all the actual costs, and we only borrow what we really spend. And that, I don't want to borrow money that we didn't have to, borrow money that we didn't need for the project. Right. But initially, we needed some cash to pay bills for the design phase, which is what we're in right now.
But the short-term interest is,
It's only interest only is what you have to pay. It's what that interest rate's gonna be. I mean, the borrowing we did, the interest rate we paid, I think was 3.7 or something like that. But we did that back in, I think, September maybe, or October is when it went out to bid. Who knows what the interest rates are gonna be in 2 years? I mean, that's kind of a wild card, but we don't wanna go out and borrow money that we're not gonna need to borrow. Because then you're paying for money that you didn't, and you can't use it for anything, so.
Yeah.
It's called arbitrage.
Right.
that's when you invest.
It doesn't really take away any of the principal, so really that bond anticipation note is only attached
Just the answer is short term, right? But that's typically pretty low. Now the advantage is that we took the 9 million that we're paying, say 3.75, and we put it in an account where we're earning 4%. So we're earning a little bit more interest than we're actually paying for the bill, and we can use that money to invest in the project and reduce costs as well. Sure.
Jay, could you just also clarify, you said there's an offset from MSBA. How much is that anticipated to be?
Around 4 million. Don't hold me to the exact number.
Oh, no,
And I
it's
can
fine.
give you what the contract was, but until they have the actual construction contract, they don't know. An MSBA, they're gonna give us as little as they can, but it's around 52% was their reimbursement. Hopefully they're not.
It's only for the roof.
It's only for the
Only
roof
for the
part, not the HVAC part of the project.
It helps though. I mean,
Yeah.
4 million is 4
Oh,
million.
yeah, I'm happy with
Take it.
Kristen, as an FYI, EVT is also doing their roof. So
Yeah.
you're gonna hear the same thing from them.
Yeah.
Similar 52%.
Yeah.
Right.
It'll get confusing.
Everybody needs a roof. I mean, that was
Yeah.
probably the easiest sell was the roof. I mean, everybody
Understands that.
walk in and look at the buckets and everything.
Lots of buckets right now, with rain and melting snow everywhere.
Does anybody have
Anything
any
else?
questions, comments, anyone else?
Sean, you any questions on this? You're muted, Sean.
I'll take that as a no.
Sean, do you have any questions on this?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, all right. One of the slides had the out of district special education, I think going from 16 to 22 students. I was curious about that. Is that kind of across all grades? Is that more within like new students coming into the elementary, or is that seeing students that are currently getting the attention they need in elementary now moving up where they don't have that additional sort of paraprofessional special education? And so now they're going out.
I would tell you it's across all grades. It's typically the kids that are placed out of district are placed out of district because of fairly severe needs that most districts can't serve within their school district. I'm not going to get into a lot of details about what those issues are, but they're generally fairly high needs students and not just, somebody needs a little extra attention, so we're going to send them out of district.
Some of it can be, how do I say this? We do have some that have moved in, so that happens every year, and that's part of it. So it's kind of new needs that show up. And in other cases, sometimes the needs change from elementary to middle. And so what we can support at an early elementary is different from the needs that they might develop heading when they're older. Yeah. So it is a range.
The +5 doesn't mean we had 5 people moving to town that were in kindergarten that needed special.
No, but some of our out of district are, of the total, are have moved in too. Yep.
Not sure if you would know, but I mean, if you kind of looked at like a bell curve, I mean, would you see a bulge of these students in middle school, or are we expecting that some may process out within the next couple of years? Or a larger number?
Off the top of my head, I don't know how many are in that, like 7th or 11th, 12th grade in that era. But the thing is that even when they get to 12th grade, they potentially could still, as Paul said earlier, we still may have to serve their needs from 18 to 22. They range in a whole spectrum. So I'm sure there's a couple that are going to age out in the next couple of years. There's going to be a couple more that are going to come in.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
mean,
know
typically on average, Sean, we've had one graduate every year or so. It's not usually a bunch in one grade because it's so spread out typically.
Okay. I remember, years back going to, discussions around going to the self-funded health insurance and trying to look for incentives perhaps for staff to, even if there's another insurance plan within the household, maybe there's an incentive sort of to, go on to that. Just kind of curious from your discussions this year and, 23% increase. I know it's hard to look at the future and kind of where it's going. Have you received any sort of feedback on that? If we, get a couple of years where we have less people with higher needs? Is it potentially something we would be going back to a fully insured program? I mean, you take on a level of risk when you go to self-funded. So I'm just kind of curious the thoughts from the school committee on being self-funded versus the.
So the advantage in my mind to self-funding is that when you're in a fully insured plan, you lose two things. You lose the rebates that the prescription companies pay to insurance companies for putting their drugs in the formulary, and you also are paying a profit because no insurance company, operates without a profit margin.
Sure.
They usually look at your loss ratios. Anything above 88%, the premiums go up. Less than that, they might stay flat. They very seldom go down. What I've done since we've got our premiums is I've started to get some comparative numbers, like what are our premiums compared to, say, this town or this school district, and I'm finding that our premiums are still less than most districts, which basically means that during the current year, they're paying higher than we're currently paying. We've talked about the incentives as whether it would be worth it. It would depend on how that works because we've got 120 people that suddenly you'd have to spend a bunch of money to pay them when they're already not taking the insurance. So you'd have to word it. I'm not sure that that's advantageous to us as a district to do that.
But it is something that we're gonna look into.
Yeah, it's not something we're ignoring,
Yeah.
but the self-funding is, no matter what with health insurance, you pay the cost of your claims. If fully insured, self-insured, you're paying those costs. Because if your loss ratio is over 100% in any given year, the next year they're hiking your premiums to make their money back because they want their profit. So in this way, we don't have to pay the profit margin, we get the rebates back. It all helps reduce our premiums in some respects. So I still think, most corporations are now looking at self-insurance as well, are in that kind of plan already. The towns have been in that for years with Blue Cross Blue Shield, that, the Maya plan is a self-funded plan as well. And Maya structures it with 3 tiers, 1 tier for low claims, a middle tier for middle claims, and a high tier for high claims. From what I understand, I think both Mendon and Upton are in the high tier right now for next year.
Okay. Last question. Looking at one of the slides between the needs-based budget and the strategic budget, it's a difference of about 1.3 million. On the slide itself, I only see maybe, looks like 6 positions in difference. Could you maybe just touch on kind of what else there may be within that difference of 1.3 million? Between the needs-based and the strategic budget?
Off the top of my head,
I know.
I would have to really look into all the details behind that. The positions, I think there were probably about 7 or 8 positions that you're looking at an average of around 80,000 apiece. So that's 3/4 of it right there. There's health insurance costs you have to factor in.
Okay.
But I'd have to look at more detail.
Yeah.
I can't give you an answer to that right off the top of my head right now.
Oh,
I did the
that's
math like 6 weeks ago, so the memory's not quite as good as.
But you're asking for a needs-based budget, not strategic. correct?
Yes, we're not asking for strategic, but.
Okay. All right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
So you got one.
So what?
No, he's asking about the difference between those two. So it's these
Oh,
positions.
I
here.
thought he was asking.
No,
between
no.
it, and so then I was thrown because that number was way bigger.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
like,
no.
I don't know.
He's asking about-
Like, I don't know.
So
What
you
else?
got
is in
1,
there? Okay.
2,
Thank you.
4.
Sean, they're still
Oh,
working on
okay.
it.
Yeah, no. So you're asking between needs-based and strategic beyond the positions. That was the question?
So one
Yeah,
other thing
yeah,
that's in the
so-
strategic budget is a new lease for devices for students. That was a couple $100,000 that was taken out in this budget.
And, and also when the slide that is the green slide going up, if you go into some of those other categories, I don't know if you have it in front of you, but when we were saying in future years, the strategic budget level is what was requested by people in the budget. That makes sense. So late buses was requested, that's cut out. Furniture was requested for some classrooms that are breaking, that was cut out. So it's beyond the positions. It was all of those line items that we just either level funded or cut out are in that strategic budget. And so some of them are mentioned there, but it's also like the combination, hundreds of line items, if that's helpful. The technology one was a big one too. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't quite hear it.
Any other questions, comments?
Start over and do it again.
Sure.
A lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
Right, yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate your time and let us know if you have more questions and we're more than happy to come back.
Yes, if anything comes up, you can just send us an email. Happy to answer it.
We will, and we'll send you what we had for those emails requested.
Okay.
Already
Okay. Oh, they're done. They should be waiting for you. A little light reading when you get home.
I don't read my email in meetings.
No,
Thank you.
send it to me.
Did that-
You
did
didn't.
that-
I
Thanks, guys. Yeah. Wow.
Don't fork actually stuff makes sense. I think they're completely
Did
different. So
you
whatever.
have to dig it out of your emails for Sunday?
He's in charge of.
Okay,
Perfect.
beautiful. Great.
She
No,
told
it's
me.
not, yeah, it's not what, it's not, what they told
You
you.
send that.
Yeah, we just sent it to.
Yes.
It's in there, but I'll.
That's Mercy.
There are 3 county vocational schools operating in different settlements.
Right. You good?
All right.
Different schools.
On to review of the 2026 ATM warrant.
At 8 o'clock tonight.
Here,
let me, send it to you.
Trump session, something.
Pick the comfortable chair.
One of them, I may fall off it.
So I have a couple of notes on this warrant before we go through it, because this is super hot off the press, as in about an hour before this meeting.
Okay.
But it is for the most part comprehensive in terms of the articles. There is just some language that is still outstanding to be updated, but I wanted you to have a sense of what you're looking at in terms of numbers of articles as well as nature of articles. So this is going to be a 32 article warrant. And a couple of notes, Article 4, we include the school override. I realized I did not put it on there, but that would come as part of the budget. The DPW expansion, Dennis, I'm so sorry. Somehow I deleted when I was attempting to reformat the budget. I somehow deleted the debt exclusions. I was going for DPW expansion. That will be Article 13. I think it makes the most sense to go with the other highway articles. So that is my intent to do lucky Article 13. And then that will make us go from a 31 to a 32.
But-
All right, so everything else will.
Madam Manager,
Sorry, I'm sorry.
placement is important.
That's
That's why I would prefer to see the highway one, the capital, the DPW one, early on. Before this one, before what we just heard.
Why?
Because we put an awful lot of work into this, and placement is important.
I understand. So what is your intent?
So what do you do?
I'd put the,
DPW 5?
I'd put the DPW one ahead of the school one,
So when you think about needs and wants, you put the DPW ahead of the school.
if you want to put it that way, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I'll give you my.
Your words, not mine, but
Well, those were your words when we talked about things in the past.
that's true.
That's what happens in life.
In fact, it bites you sometimes.
No, I'm just trying to understand.
Madam Manager had something.
Trying to.
I'll give you my rationale for putting it where it is. I have heard over and over and over again at the dozens of town meetings I've attended, especially when they're late in the evening, that it is a challenge for parents. They like to have the budget early on in the agenda because you've got kids. One night I had a meeting that went to 11 and part of that discussion was the school budget and you had kids asleep on the floor. We don't want to have that. That was my thinking in putting the budget first. But obviously your warrant open to however you.
There's also mass exodus after the school is voted.
Right.
Yeah.
They all get up and leave. Yep, 3/4 of the room, unfortunately. Dennis, do you have an opinion?
You're muted, Dennis, if you're trying to speak.
Dennis is probably sleeping.
No, he's not.
He never.
No, he's here.
Probably sleeping. Jeez. Got what sleeping is.
Pause for dramatic effect.
Well, you didn't hear us earlier, but Kristen looked up and saw you and said, is your middle name Paul? Because then your initials would be DPW.
I did.
Uh-huh. I'm gonna defer to the board and the FinCom for this, where you've had more experience on town floor than I have. So wherever you think it should be is where I think it should be. How's that for a lame answer?
Non-answer type.
A very respectful answer. Thank
I'm
you.
not sure if it's a needs for wants thing, but people leaving for the school may have something to do with where you put that DPW as well.
So you want to put the school in so that nobody leaves?
Oh, no.
Oh,
I
okay.
think school has done before. I mean, I think people are gonna have to realize we spent $2.5 million on our DPW already.
Yeah.
And if we don't vote the other 15-ish, because my math stinks, 15, 16,
17.
we've just wasted $2.5 million.
And you still have to pay that $2.5 million.
It will be paid, it was promised.
Additional 17 though, isn't it? Or is it?
Additional
17.
No, it's not definite.
It's coming, yeah, I'll let Dennis explain it because I don't want to mess it up.
So our original ask was between 17.5 and 19.5, with 19.5 being the drop dead top that we would ask for. You have to back the 2.5 out of that. So the most we could ask for, if we keep our word, which we do, to the taxpayers would be no more than 17 million on town floor.
The other question is, based on everything we're looking at in the timing and the sequencing of these things, is this the right timing for all of these things to do them all at once in one meeting?
The schools, I don't know, but we need to do, I mean, we've said it before, that you said it earlier, you've been on the board for 10 years and Dennis has been being pushed for 10 years. We are in violation of OSHA, we're in violation of DEP, our building is literally falling apart. Dennis was frozen solid this winter, he had no drains.
And no heat in the igloo.
No heat, and he's had no air conditioning in the summer.
It's got it, but it doesn't work.
We've expended 2.5 million. I don't think we can skip the DPW building.
So the other point is that 17 million is not gonna get any lower.
No, it's only gonna go up because years ago when we were looking at it, Rick, I think you can tell me what it was. It was 10. Am I correct?
It was around 8 million.
Yeah.
And we had it on great back then, it was going to about 8%. That's what we forecasted. It's been more than that.
In our first pass, before we went to a town meeting, our first pass on this was, I believe it was 33 million, Dennis, and then we started knocking things down.
Yeah, the range that we originally started with was 30 to 33.
Yeah.
And then we knocked it down to 17.5 to 19.5. We took basically 10,000 square feet out of the building.
I am, I have an opinion about it, which is fine, and we can talk about that, but I think given the number of things that are gonna be costing money on this warrant, big money, I wonder if there's some advantage, right? Like normally, if in normal course of business, if you put the school first or earlier, right, everybody votes on the school, 3/4 of the people leave, totally get it, right? I wonder, regardless of what order you do them in, if we start at the very beginning of the meeting to say, look these are the things you're gonna vote on. $17 million for a DPW is gonna cost this much. So people know, all right, if I get up and leave after I vote for the DPW, because some people might leave after the DPW, right? Whoever wants to leave, make sure that they know they're leaving a big vote. Because there's two really big things that are gonna be voted on at this meeting. One is the schools, one is the DPW.
And both of them have to
I can
go to
cover that
ballot.
in a
Am I
recommendation
correct?
letter too, so they have it at the.
Yes.
I think they should know, but they also both have to go ballot. And people have to understand that totally, because people don't always understand that. They think, oh, I lost, oh, I won. They need to know it's a two-pronged approach.
Right. The other.
You can't do one without the other.
The other option is, right, to put, and again, I think most of these things go pretty quickly, except for these two big ones, right? do you put both of them earlier so that you're covering them both earlier? Or does that somehow undermine the rest of the work we're trying to do? So you, right, like whether you do them all in the top 5, I mean, I don't know, this is.
Well, I mentioned this earlier, to Kristen's point about timing and all that.
Yeah.
Hopkinton for years had town meeting on Saturday. People complained about it. There's too much, there's kids going on, there's this going on, there's that going on. Guess what they did last fall?
Yeah.
Oh, so they moved town meeting to Monday and Tuesday nights. Guess what they did at the fall town meeting? They moved town meeting back to Saturday.
I'm not a fan of moving. Go on. Yeah, I agree.
So I don't see this being a whole, as long as Bill Andrews is there, we're good.
And the operating budget is Article 3. I mean, and the first 2 articles are reports of town officers and prior year bills. So those.
Right. That's
Consent calendar. Consent calendar.
Yeah.
We have the consent agenda,
Which is some of
too,
these.
which is all the CPA and the 53 and that revolving.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other. I certainly, you know, am interested in the town manager's perspective and experience and taking advantage of that wisdom.
We don't have to decide that tonight.
And we don't have to
No,
decide it tonight, right?
You don't, and mine was only to give you my rationale when I put the warrant together. It wasn't to say that that is the best for Upton. You know the community far better than I do. I mean, it's only week 4. Remember, I'm not counting days or hours anymore, but it is week 4.
Right.
One point though, just to point out, and you were starting to hit on it, Laura, that both the debt exclusion and the override go on the warrant, go on the ballot. The select board is the only body that can put those items on the warrant and on the ballot. But I do just want to caution you that when you have a regional school, well, regardless if it's a regional school or not, if there isn't an override on the warrant, then the school is able to put their amount on the warrant, and if that passes, you have to make cuts to the town budget. So that's your challenge.
Yeah, we have to show
How we're gonna fund it.
2.8 million somewhere in our budget. It has to be because they voted it, so. If we put it in the budget and they approve it, then we have to fund it somehow. And that's gonna be cut to town services or override.
That'd be devastating to us.
And as we've said before, you can't cut the school, you can't motion to reduce the school budget on the floor of the town meeting. You vote it up or you vote it down.
Yes or no? Bottom line number.
And what happens, Brett, is they have the next period number of days, they can go back and they can vote a new budget. They can vote the same budget, or they can vote a reduced budget. And they bring that back to the town. If that fails, then you go to the joint meeting of the district.
You're doing all my work for me, Paul, tonight. Thank you.
That's what makes it,
That was all in that paper I gave you today.
It's always wild card.
We approved an override many years ago. Mendon failed it, and then the school
We came
came
close.
back and did not go for an override. We had to underride. Is that what?
No,
we're
we
doing?
didn't.
No.
We should have done an underride. That's where we created the school stabilization account, which eventually got rolled into general stabilization, which should have, by right, gone to an underwrite. I was the only one to do that, and they said it was gonna cost too much to have an election and do it and all that, so it never happened.
I will tell you, because I've heard the underride argument before, you want to retain that capacity because you're just going to end up in an override situation again down the line.
Yep.
You see, what happened was though,
That was the same.
this was an override for the school, which in the first year has to go to the school. After that, it becomes part of the levy, and the money can go anywhere.
Correct. With any override after the first year, that money can be reappropriated and reallocated.
Well, we don't have to decide this tonight, but we'll just
Good
keep
to know.
tooling along because we've all are just laying eyes on this.
So my few caveats, Article 4, Article 3 would include the potential school override, DPW expansion. We'll find a place wherever the board feels appropriate. And one thing I am going to ask, if the board would be willing to reopen the warrant on March 31st for a request from Chief Palmieri to make an adjustment to that radio article. And I will talk about that a little bit more. This was the one that went to fall town meeting that needs to be put
Right.
back on the warrant.
Right.
He has gotten a revised quote, and it is higher, but he would be able to take care of the entire project at the same time, as well as the other upgrades that are going on. I do think that it makes sense, but that is the purview of the board, whether or not you want to open the warrant. So,
We can open and close it right after.
yes, you may. And I just
I
didn't
think
know.
we do when we didn't, we received bad legal advice. And we voted it, and we didn't have free cash certified, and we knew if it got kicked to the spring, it would probably be more. That's
Yeah.
life.
But he was just replacing some radios, now he's doing more. So this is gonna be, I think he was coming to us with additional radio upgrades anyway, so now he's putting them both together, I think is what he's
The
doing.
October, the fall thing was the beginning of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So I think he's gonna have,
Eventually,
I
do
think
everything.
we
so
would have had
too,
one in the fall, one in the spring. Do it all at the same
You're
time.
gonna miss this.
Yeah, and the chief.
You're gonna miss this.
What's the amount?
Come before, so it would be 19,271 for 10 radios, accessories, programming, and engraving. This would allow the PD to outfit the entire department with new radios and have 2 spare, in addition to the 6 that he intends on purchasing using the FY26 state earmark money. So this would be one for every officer, a dispatch backup and a spare. They would still maintain their old ones as backups and be able to give to traffic officers during bigger events, men's club fireworks, etc. This all came about because he needed to get an updated quote for the old warrant article. And the ones that were quoted in the fall apparently will no longer be made with digital compatibility. So since he had to get a reprice anyways, he wanted to look at the cost to completely upgrade, which in all honesty, everyone should be on the same radio. That is a
Yes,
public
otherwise that's a
safety nightmare. And that is a liability to the town when officers cannot communicate with one another.
And this is not an issue that's gonna affect the bottom raise and appropriate line, because it's a free cash.
It's a free cash article, correct?
I heard all I needed to hear, $20,000.
Yes, that is correct.
Free
Okay.
cash.
So jumping back up then,
Okay.
we did the first couple articles. Oh, now I see what I did. See, we go from Article 3 to Article 5. So I somehow, in moving things around, managed to delete an article. So Article 5 and Article 6 are your annual water enterprise fund and wastewater enterprise fund allocations. Article 7 is your standard revolving fund spending limits. One item to note, the Recreation Commission, when they were here the other night, did ask for an increase from 270 to 290
Look into.
as their limit.
And
And
then
I,
February wanted to go from 7 to 10.
yes, so that is in there, and I am going to look into the type of revolving fund that the Recreation Commission is authorized for, because I know that came up at last week's meeting. I just haven't had a chance to yet, but it's on the list.
There's a couple, well, actually, I think that's the only one that didn't get the authorization from the selectmen.
Because it looks like in going back over previous warrants, everything but the treasurer collector tax title were authorized as 53E1/2 accounts when the limits were set in the prior fiscal.
Prior fiscal years.
Correct, and I can't say that's correct, but that's how it's been done, so I left it as that for right now.
You are correct. My recollection, you are correct.
But it's on the list to look into. Cable Enterprise, I do need to reach out and get clarification on their budget for FY27 numbers. Transfer to stabilization, that is typically at the purview of the FinCom as to what you would recommend putting into stabilization, and we can have a discussion about free cash. Same with Article 10, which is transfer to capital stabilization, and Article 11, which is free cash transfer to OPEB.
Can I ask, Kenny? Is this 150,000? Am I missing something? Is this an increase? Didn't we used to do 100?
We did the increase last.
That was
Are you
last
talking
year.
OPEB?
Yeah.
We went to 150,000 last year.
Yeah. But it
Yes,
is new.
correct.
relatively
Yeah.
I just
did
love
change
last
it.
year's numbers.
They answered it, Kenny.
Sounds good.
Age is creeping up on me. I'm forgetting things.
We may not need to move this much either, because we have good balances now, so see what we have to do to keep it at 10 and so forth.
Yeah.
Article 12 is the Playground Capital Improvement Stabilization Fund, which I think is genius, by the way. 15,000 actually instead of 10 on that one. So that is the change that I will be making.
I can give you background on that if you want.
I think you started telling me about it and we may not have finished. Yes.
We put the rubber-based playground over there. I got talking to the lady from Site Specific who does all those things. And it was, how long is this gonna last? And how much is it gonna cost to replace it? Probably 100 grand, 120 grand to replace it. Okay, we should be putting money away every year to do this. And there are gonna be other expenses at the playground. I don't wanna be stealing Dennis's thunder, but there's, wood chips, excuse me, they're not wood chips, they're, I can't think of the term for it. No, it's engineered wood fiber. That's what they call it. It's not, it's wood chips, it's engineered wood fiber that is in an area, particularly around the swings, which was put there rather than the rubber base. So the kids on the swings wouldn't swing their feet and put a hole in the rubber. So we put the engineered wood fiber there, which has to be changed on a regular basis. And we're like 3 years into it now. So I don't know, I'm sure, you know, I'll put that on Dennis's to-do list tomorrow, so.
It's the Flaherty swing, so we're funding it now.
Anytime you can do a multi-year plan to fund something, you know, one of the things, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but I want to look at is computer replacement and starting to get on a replacement schedule, just like we do with the cruisers. You're going to get less of a hit when you're budgeting for it long-term.
We used to do that. We also, you'll see in here, we used to put money away every 3 years for your triennial value reval. We used to put $10,000-15,000 away every year now.
Because that's up to 45 to 50 grand a year for the reval, every 5 years.
Is it not in the budget? I thought it was now a budget line item.
I think,
Every 5 years.
no, we have money every year. I think it went to an article, Steve, because you gotta, if it's in a line item, if it's not used, you gotta close it out, right?
Right. I've typically seen it dumped as an article.
I've seen it in the prior years, in Kenny's prior year sheets, there's a reval article in there.
That's why they make it an article.
Yeah.
Correct. It's an article for 10,000.
I'm on there though.
Thank you, Kenny. Article 13 is Chapter 90 acceptance. I don't want to make a big deal. That's not something you have to do anymore, but I understand it's on consent agenda, so it shouldn't really take up much time. That was Muni Mod, I believe, of 2016 that changed you from having to make that a publication of the county. But I know there's tradition too, so I'll take that into account. Article 14, road construction appropriation. This is to supplement the Chapter 90 funds in the amount of $600,000 from free cash and the general fund in order to address road repairs in the town's pavement management plan.
Excuse me, which is it? It can't be both. You said free cash and general fund.
I'm sorry, Dennis, can you please
It's free
clarify?
cash.
Free cash, it is
Free
free
cash.
cash.
I'm sorry, I had both of them in there. You are correct. And I'm saying that going.
That's right, don't let it happen again, you'll be good.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you're on it. You're watching me like a hawk. I like it. Article 15 is your typical snow and ice deficit appropriation. So this will fall into $350,000 for the snow and ice.
350, the updated number? That what we're estimating?
Dennis, are we up from 350?
We just, last night's storm's gonna bring us right around the 300 mark. So cross your fingers that's it. And the
Okay.
salt shed is full, so.
Good.
Mother Nature calls it quits.
You
we're
didn't
good to
see
go.
that driveway on the ground this morning? It was annoying.
I'm home today. So
Yeah.
it just came out of.
I almost fell on the top floor of the parking garage. I was like, what the? Oh, yeah.
No, they,
It's up and everything.
they went out around 3.
I'm going back to bed.
White.
I hate.
Seriously, I was like, I'm all done. PTSD.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Article 16, water risk and resiliency assessment and emergency response plan. I understand those are DEP requirements that need to be met. Article 17A is your community preservation annual appropriation to fund the reserve accounts. 17B is your administrative budget. And 17C is the community preservation annual appropriation for the town hall renovation bond. This would be year 13 with 7 years remaining.
That seems like just yesterday.
And I do have to double check that amount. That's why I said. Your one CPA project article that has been brought to my attention is an open space fund transfer for the trail bridge at the Robertson Family Conservation Area. 35,000 that would connect it into the nearly complete 9-mile long Upton Loop Trail.
They already do that.
Familiar?
Or a lot more.
Did I get
Last year or the year before.
It got approved and it went out to bid and it came in over.
Ah,
The bid was
so we
too
had-
high.
All right, so I'll make a note to make that clear.
All right, you see what it says, it's a supplement, that there's only 35,000 to supplement, 120 we already gave you.
Oh, yep, it's further down in there. This appropriation would supplement the 120. See, Paul, you got my back. I like it.
Always.
All right.
Good.
So that's your CPA project.
the 2023 annual.
Yes, it was.
I thought, didn't we just talk about a bridge last year? Rob,
I'm with you on that one. I feel like this is fresher than 2023.
Yeah.
It might be a different bridge, but
Isn't it on High Street?
No.
There's one where they're building the house, but I thought there was one.
Dennis?
This was on the
This is the
Robertson property.
Robertson Trail Bridge we're talking about.
Yeah,
It was, Steve, you're correct. It was discussed last year.
all right.
Oh, okay.
Um,
2025 annual town meetings. That's-
Edit.
Okay, no, it's good to get these straightened out. Article 19 is Dennis again, sewer system rehabilitation project, phase 2. That is for 33,800 in funding from the wastewater retained earnings for the next phase of this project.
who's this guy, like the interim town manager or something, putting all these articles on here? What's this? Did you get some pull? Thank you for your service, Dennis.
Thank you, sir.
Article 20 is the Forest Heights Care, Custody, and Control, and it is to transfer the care, custody, management, and control of Forest Heights from the Upton Select Board to the Upton Conservation Commission for conservation and passive recreation purposes. I don't believe that's a new one for you all. No, okay.
we've been living with it for a while.
Yep.
Article 21, BBC stabilization account. I just need to confirm that that needs to still be in there. There's a fiscal appropriation.
I don't think they're gonna need anything in there, do they?
No, I don't know, but we did this 2 years ago for
It allows them to have.
MURSD. It just enables them to do it.
And that's why it's highlighted, because it may be able to come off. So I just hadn't had a chance to look into it yet.
They're gonna be here next week, right?
Yeah.
Yep, they can-
Bless them.
Yep.
No, they can make tonight. They're coming next week, I believe.
Yep.
We confirmed it yet?
They sent an email, or you did, somebody.
Somebody sent an email
So
saying
do
they.
you want them here at 6? I'll just close the loop with them.
Yeah, if you, I think
Right,
6 would be
it's
great.
okay.
We'll get them on first, in and out.
Yep.
And then we'll get those other departments as well that were mentioned right there after, in your email list that
Mhm.
Laura had put.
You want them on first?
Yep.
I
BBC
think so.
first, please.
Problem's gonna be the Board of Selectmen town manager. That's what I see that as an issue.
I can't hear you. It's not gonna hear either one, I'm sorry.
All right, Article 22 is.
I'll tell them here's 16. Let's see.
I was just
Wait a
gonna ask the chair, you may have a couple of small things before, so yeah, I was just gonna say, can we say 6:15 for them?
Well, sometimes it depends on what the small things are, because if we go cruising through and then we sit here and look at each other for 10 minutes, it's not great.
Yeah, I'm not sure they are.
Because like tonight, we started 10 minutes late and
We still got them.
we were right on time. We were a minute early, so I'd prefer to have them come at 6. If there's a couple of small things, 1 or 2, they can wait.
Yeah.
I'd rather them be waiting than be waiting because I'm moving forward.
Yeah. Okay. Lights just dim.
Yes,
Okay.
they're on the timer. The code goes off.
Closing time, it's time for them to go home.
It's like a hint, but I
I'm
don't
almost
take it.
through, so that's good.
Okay.
Stormwater bylaw amendment, I'm waiting for the draft changes to come from Conservation Commission. I have been in touch with Mary on that article. Article 23, Whitney Conservation Area Trail Tree Removal for $15,000 for the Conservation Commission to remove hazardous trees in that conservation area. Article 24 are your zoning articles, accessory use and structure zoning bylaw amendment, which the planning board will explain. And Article 25, an amendment to accessory dwelling unit zoning bylaw. Let's put some. Article 26 is starting with your capital articles, the fire station vehicle bay drainage repair for $289,000. These would allow the floor drains to be replaced because the current drain is in a state of failure.
So that was the other one we.
That was on before.
They got
Same amount?
carried forward.
They're keeping the same amount?
289 is my understanding. I will confirm.
Please.
All right. Article 27 is a request from EMS to replace 2 Lucas devices at a cost of $65,000. They have reached the end of their expected life service and are no longer supported at the same level for parts and service.
They talked about that last week.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Police portable radios, we just talked about, that if you are amenable, we can put that on the warrant to reopen and close the warrant at the 3:31 meeting.
Yes.
Okay. Article 29 is the police department vehicle replacement, that second cruiser that Chief Palmieri talked about when he was here last week. I just need to get the cost for that. Article 30 is your Upton Community Center project balance transfer. So we're looking to transfer the remaining balance of $451,387 that was left from the community center over to the DPW expansion and reno project to offset the amount that needs to be. What did I do?
You're fine, you're fine, you're fine. There is actually 471,000 and change in there. And Dennison,
I have 81, that's why.
481, I think, yeah, 481. And Dennis and I had talked about that, and I'm not so sure we need to leave 30,000 in there, but the intent is to apply that to the DPW project. It could not be used for the earlier work that we've done there, because this was for construction. So because it was a debt exclusion, it can be only used for construction, another major construction project. So that's what we have to do that. I have a question, if I may, Madam Chair. Kenny Costa. Kenny, help me out.
Yes.
There's an Article 5 from November 2nd, 21 town meeting shows $54,217 and change for a DPW schematic design. And on Article 16 from the November 13, November 13, 2018 has $12,500 from a DPW feasibility study. The total is $667,000, Can we add that into the 400? And apply it towards the construction cost of the DPW? They're both in your prior years area, I believe. 54.
I'm sorry,
I don't
you
have
froze
the.
up.
Oh,
Disconnected and reconnected.
I don't have the account numbers, unfortunately.
Can I ask one question while we're waiting? 451, can we put some of that into that stabilization?
What
Still gonna-
stabilization?
The community center stabilization.
You could, but we're looking to use,
No, I
to
understand.
reduce the cost.
It's one pocket to the other.
Well, the question I had asked Tanya and Matthew earlier today was, is there something there that they could really use that we could consider as part of the construction process and buy it out of that? Okay, believe it or not, this building is 13 years old, and I think there's still 12,000, I think there's still $12,000 sitting there, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Is that a borrowing authorization or that's actual account balance in an article? Because
That's the account balance.
out to free cash too.
That's,
Can we put that towards the repairs for this building?
probably, but,
I mean, I know it's a drop in the bucket compared to what we need, but.
you could, to use it for repairs for this building, yeah, you could. That was so.
That's some.
Because we used some, I think we used, Dennis, didn't we use some of that money that was left over for the issue outside, the parking issue outside?
Yes.
Okay. So I can see still a need for that, but my question, the need for this 66,717.
We can.
Maybe
look
we'll come
into
back
that
on that
rather than
one.
Putting Kenny totally on
Yeah.
the spot and we can.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, why don't we do that? Kenny, if we can get an answer by next week or before. Our next
Sure,
meeting is the 31st, so
Sounds like he's got it now.
do you have the answer?
Well, the issue was, we were disconnected a couple of times, so I don't even know I don't know what the question is.
The question is, in your prior years, November 2nd, 21, Article 5, DPW schematic design, 54,217. November 13, 2018, Article 16, DPW feasibility study, 12,500. Total 66,717. Could that money be used towards the DPW construction project?
Well, so on both of those items, I see the 12,500. It looks like to me it was raise and appropriate on that one. So we'd have to look at each one to see, just to make sure it wasn't barred from debt, and I don't believe so. So what we would have to do is we would just have to repurpose the article. So we would just have to put the original article there and then just repurpose it for a new use. Because if I recall, that intended purpose, not for construction.
Right, well, one says feasibility study, the other says schematic design.
Yep. So we can just repurpose those for construction.
All right, so that
And
with the
article.
with the 430, you've got over 500,000 that we can apply towards the DPW building.
So if that is something that's feasible and we'll look at it, I would recommend for transparency purposes, when the board opens the warrant on the 31st and make mention, and whether that can be rolled into one article or it has to be 3 separate, I can confirm. We'll try, but I just want to make that clear that you're adding those when you open the warrant.
Exactly.
Christian, we've done it previously where we've had multiple things.
Within the same article. I was thinking it could be done, but I was on the spot, so I didn't.
But
It's tracked to one place.
the issue with this is, that was a borrow. And this was a raise and appropriate or a transfer.
That's, yeah, it has to, it depends on the nature of how it was
but
originally
we
worded
will-
that we have to look at.
We'll clarify it when we open the warrant. We'll clarify what we need.
Yes.
And it's 451 and then 66. Those are the numbers.
Yeah, 451, I don't know, I could, I'll talk to Dennis and see if we could probably reduce, keep 15 or 20. I'm not sure we need to keep 30,000.
The reason I did call was through the chair, if I could. The reason I
Yes,
did
please.
call is because we've been experiencing some difficulties with the HVAC system, as you know. And I have found that those repairs are extremely expensive because those units are so large and they're like cutting edge technology. So just the 2 units that I had KMD and HTS have to come out and service cost me over $10,000.
All right, that's fine, you convinced me. I know, life hasn't been easy over there with all that mechanical stuff, so.
It's wonderful when it works correctly, which is most of the time.
It's spectacular when it works.
Stinks when it
The last one was a telephone system upgrade.
Last but not least, that is correct. And I believe I got those numbers by email. I just need to insert them.
Okay.
And that should be it, except for the additional articles we talked about reopening. Okay. I'm pretty good shape.
Good.
I think that's
You
everything.
don't want this?
I have my own. Mention something about the override. Like,
Yes.
so
Just that was the last.
I'm not sure we want to have the BBT be separate. I think I sent you and copies to you guys. Just my personal opinion that when we have a minimum local contribution and everything else additional, like, to me, that's always been separate on how we've addressed it. So I think the way that BBT did their budget, how they have like 8 or 10 reductions, like they have gotten down to a number, our numbers increased because of the number of students. So I think us including that at an override just feels wrong to me.
We also had an increase of 6 kids there, so.
And I asked that question to Kenny because there is a difference between a per pupil assessment in my mind. But typically the way that it's been done here is you budget a 2.5% increase for each school. So unless you want to try, just for fairness sake, unless you want to try to offset both, which would be, I think, a little bit challenging. Kenny, would you be able to speak a little bit more to the reason that you have that 142,000 for BVT in the override?
Yes, so we typically do 2.5% for each one. Not remembering the exact numbers, but I know one of the increases, it's about 11% and the other is about 20%. So if you would like, we can adjust those numbers. We can fully fund BVT and then just show the entire amount from Mendon Upton Regional, or we can just keep the 2.5 so everything is equitable. So really it's up to the board or up to tell me like how you want to show that. I mean, what I did was I just did 2.5 for each one, so it's equitable. I mean, both increases are significant. Like I said, one's 11%, the other one's almost 20%. So I just thought to make it equitable, 2.5 would make sense. But if we would like to change that at a later date, we can do that. I know we've done that in the past. I know in the past we've done that.
Kenny, in the past, we've had.
We haven't had an override.
We've never applied an override to the BVT budget. And several times we have had increases of 8 or 9 pupils, which was basically the main driver. And now the last few years, you have the issue of minimum local contribution. All right. And again, with respect to the MURSD budget, I personally am not in favor of putting the whole thing on the debt exclusion, on the override. I mean, I would say that we would put normally whatever we would apply to that particular line item, that we maintain somewhere in that same percentage or in that same general number area. And then
that's what we
just put
did.
the delta on the on the override.
And I think that's in a similar vein to I'm not necessarily, I don't know that we'd want to push BVT's added expense onto the MURSD budget, or sort of imply that by funding BVT and putting the extra money into the override for MURSD. I mean, I know maybe it's semantics, but I think at the end of the day, it probably doesn't matter. But
Along those same lines, you realize in the past couple of years, we've assumed the liability, which we should have done years ago, for kids going to Norfolk Aggie. So you say now, if there's an increase in one of those, do you want to put that on the debt exclusion too? Or an override too? No.
We haven't had to look at an override, so the 2.5% is, I guess when we can see everything, we can try to, I mean, we're gonna have to frame our recommendation somehow, and the override is gonna have to be, I mean, it could just say operational override too, it doesn't have to say URSD, but if we don't get it, then, there's a lot. I mean, my 2.4 was just the additional operational is what I was focusing on. Because again, when I'm looking at the minimum local contribution, those are kind of things that we're always funding, and we haven't had to do anything like this in.
Again, for what it's worth, and it's probably not worth the paper it's going to be written on, but if you gave them $500,000, okay, in the line item, and that passed, okay? They have $500,000. If you put zero in that line item and put it all on the override and it fails, they got nothing.
Exactly.
We can't do that.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
But by the point, we're gonna give you 500,000, but you want 2.8 million. Well, you know, I still am not in favor of throwing that putting that whole override on the school. Give them what you would normally, for a normal increase. You know.
And I think that's the equity issue that you're getting at and Kenny's getting at, because there would be the perception that we funded the full BBT increase, but not.
Funded, man.
Well,
RSD.
And what they want.
Yeah, one's 100,000, one's
Yeah.
2.8 million.
No, but I think she's saying like in terms of.
Increase is more than the entire BBT budget.
Right, what we're gonna fund, right, within the levies, that's that number.
But there's another point to the BVT things. This year, we have 5 more students. That's a varying number. And I heard next year when they put the
Lottery.
lottery in place, we're gonna get less seats.
Yeah.
So you don't want to put all that into 2.5.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, our numbers are gonna go down.
Yeah.
They're
They're gonna be
down.
based on the populations of the,
Could go down by the 5. Maybe it's 2. We don't know.
we won't see it for 4 years overall, but the net increase, it'll be declining.
I mean, I certainly would not want to look at trying to cut 142,000 from the town side of the budget to offset that. I don't think that would be a good option.
We have $900,000 ballpark, new growth. New growth, what's the other thing?
Talking about local receipts.
Receipts. Yeah, new growth in 2.5%. Got almost $900,000 there, right? You can find
Do we know what local receipts or what revenues look like yet?
Kenny,
Kenny,
need you back.
Kenny,
Yes, I'm working on the budget. Yes.
New growth in local receipts for this year.
Yeah, new growth is like 150, because local the 2.5.
26 or 27?
27.
So
Estimate.
27. So for fiscal year 27, we're looking at 648,068 for the automatic new growth.
4.5%.
We're looking at $300,000.
so you got 950,000.
It's even higher.
Correct. 948,068.
Should be enough to work with.
That doesn't include any changes in local receipts, so we should. I'd be willing to say that we can get the 142 out of all that. As soon as we see that, we can.
Yeah. Otherwise, we generally are agreeing. Don't want to take it out, but.
Well, no, and I mean, I know looking at local receipts is always an option. You know, I didn't know how the board might feel about that, so I didn't necessarily want to bring it up, but that's certainly a valid point as to someplace that we can look. I think the way that, you know, Kenny estimates local receipts are, you know, to give us a comfort zone, and I don't want to push us outside of that level, but it certainly can be a conversation.
Because extenuating circumstances, 5 more kids. They're looking for more money. And they could make a ton of cuts. BV2.
Yeah, so just to clarify what Kristen's saying, so the way that we have done it, we've seen a lot of free cash. Some of that is due to how we've budgeted, where some of those local receipts are conservative, we've been ending up higher. So if we bridge some of that gap, then some of these operating costs that look like increases are now covered. There is risk to that because Kenny will tell you, which I'm sure he's gonna get on, is we don't know that we're gonna get those receipts. So some of them have been windfalls, like interest. We don't want to say we're gonna get hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest continued, but motor vehicle has been high. So how do we estimate those? That's on the local receipt side is what we can look at to be less conservative, but not be overly aggressive.
Through the chair.
Yes, please.
So I just want to give an example. So it's something I've reminded Dennis, and I've also let Kristen know, like, so last year, with the $4 million free cash that was certified by the state, there was $2 million that was not appropriated. So just so you know, when town meeting, when we don't appropriate free cash, it rolls into the next year. We had $2 million that was rolled into the next year. So I just wanted, and I've noticed in the last 3 years, we've been leaving a lot of free cash rolling into the next year. So from 2018, 19, we were leaving about $500,000 to $700,000 when Derek was here. We were leaving about, $500,000 to $750,000, but there's been a change. So in the last 3 years, we've been rolling anywhere between 1.2 to $2 million. We're rolling a lot more free cash. So that's been really contributing to the higher free cash amounts. So I just want to make the board aware. And I do have concerns about, revenues, especially motor vehicle. If you look at the current year of the motor vehicle excise, that's when we've been budgeting. We've been doing very well in the prior year. So there's a lot of, taxpayers or residents that are buying new vehicles. But that's something that I don't know if it's sustainable. So a lot of the prior year commitments, those revenues have been coming in. However, I just don't know how, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know how, we'll do in the prior years. The other thing too is interest. I really don't know where interest rates are going to go. So I've been moving interest rates or the interest income. I've been moving that up each year. But just to remind you, 4 years ago, we were collecting $20,000 of interest. And that, if we go back to those days, then we'll have to make cuts on the town side. Because if we start budgeting $250,000, $300,000, and we go back to the $20,000, revenue collections or the interest income that we earned, then we'll have to make some adjustments. We could be potential cuts. So I really don't want to put the town in that position.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
When I look at local receipts, based on what Kenny has said the last couple of years, investment income is not one of the ones. I put it down to like $20,000, like he said. So there is, as soon as we get what everything is, we can walk through it.
The trust fund interest and stabilization interest in yours to the trust funds. That doesn't go to the general fund.
Goes back into the fund.
What?
Goes back into stabilization.
Interest on
Correct.
stabilization goes to stabilization. Interest on the trust funds defers to the trust funds because that becomes the expendable. Kenny, I have a question.
That's got
Yes.
nothing to do with taxes. That's got nothing to do with budgeting. The town budget.
No, the interest was the word interest that was discussed.
Investment income, I think, has something to do with ARPA and things.
Yeah,
that
that's
controls.
not related to the trust funds.
Kenny, do you have at hand what we have in overlay reserve?
I do. I just need to run the report.
Is there any of that can be released, do you think?
The last time I looked at it at the recap, I would say looking at the states during the OL1 form, I would say no. But we can take a look at it again because what DOR does, they look at how much you have an overlay compared to what you have out there for receivables, and then any cases, ATB cases that you have outstanding. So they take that into consideration. Look. So like I said, in November, December timeframe, when I prepared the tax recap, at that time, I would say no, it was pretty close.
Okay.
I'm taking
Make
a
a motion,
quick look. Taking a quick look now.
Okay, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
We gotta adjourn.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it.
Don't go away, Sean. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
9:15.
Sean Craig, aye.
Greg, aye.
Dwyer, aye. Paul Flaherty, aye. Steve Byrne, aye.
Thank you.
At 9:13, I think it said.